that says live in the corner there.
Yes.
I'm going to mute everything because I'm about to get on this other call.
Okay.
But I will be joining you in just a little bit.
Okay, that sounds great. And your PowerPoint is excellent. Thank you for integrating my slides. It looks good. I'm excited.
Hi.
Hi, Allie. Hi, Jerry.
Hello there, Crystal. Yeah, had to go in and find, because I saw that bit on YouTube and I went, that's not how we go in.
I know. And we're actually live right now. It's something that we might, as a district, want to look into in the future, but it's a ASBA thing. It's really cool.
Yeah, I saw that. So I thought, okay.
Yeah, the perk is that the conversation takes place between those that are in the Zoom or in the go-to meeting, but others can just observe. And so that's why ASBA started using it. And I think it's pretty cool.
In other words, they don't have to come to a physical meeting to watch us.
Yeah, definitely.
Ourselves.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So how are you feeling?
I feel good. I feel really good. I did get tested, and so I hope to have my results by tomorrow or maybe Saturday, but feeling pretty good. So fingers crossed. Laying low.
Yeah, that's right. We are live, aren't we?
We are. Yeah. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm doing good. I've been playing a lot with genealogy. I decided to go into Ancestry and look at the DNA matches. And so I've actually, in fact, found another couple DNA third cousins, one in North Dakota and one in Saskatchewan, Canada. and they are cousins also to each other,
Oh,
but
cool.
we are still figuring out exactly where the connection is, because there was a skeleton in the closet issue. So we know they're related, and I know I'm related, but through which of couple, 2 or 3 people,
That's awesome.
those kind of things.
That's awesome.
DNA doesn't let you hide things anymore.
No,
If you're
my
family, it shows up.
Yeah, my book club, and you're like, you really know about genealogy and ancestry, so I bet you're aware of this. My book club is reading a book right now, and it's a nonfiction. It's about the Golden State Killer. Are you familiar with? Okay,
Is that the
so
one in California that
in
yeah.
like the 70s and the 80s. And so it's interesting because this book was being written before they found out who he was. And so the woman that's writing it, Michelle McNamara, she actually dies before she's able to finish the book. But her husband, to the best of his ability, puts it together and publishes it. And so as you're reading it, you're also like going to Wikipedia and like, finding out the things that she didn't know. But they found him through a DNA search. Like they were able to put together his family tree, and they were able to, they got like a used Kleenex from his trash, and because trash is public property. And so they ran it, and they were able to, figure out which branch of the family tree he was on. And then based on the research they already had, about where he worked and, what type of person he most likely was, they were able to like hone in and figure out who he was. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, what I've been doing a lot is I'll see somebody and I won't know, it'll say they're, 100 centimorgan match, but they won't have enough of a tree or no tree. So I could go to what they call shared matches, and I can see who shares DNA with me and this other person. And there may be somebody on that list that I know already. And therefore I can then break it down to, is that my mother's side? Is that my father's side? Which line are we connected with because of somebody I already know about?
That's
and in
really
this case, it was this one that was from my great grandmother's line, her parents. So the one in Saskatchewan is from one brother. I'm from a sister. And the third person is either from another brother or a nephew.
Wow.
Those kind of things. So we go back, that's why you're third cousins, not second cousins or first cousins. Not everybody understands the difference between when we say a first cousin, second, third, or a first cousin twice removed, even.
What does twice removed mean?
It means 2 generations off. Parents, their children are first cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the first cousin, one of those has a child.
Mm-hmm.
That child is a first cousin one time removed to the first cousin of their mother or father.
Oh.
So first cousin twice removed would be a grandchild going up.
I see.
So it's generations apart rather than where a first cousin is this line, second cousin are the children of those, third cousins are the children of those.
Uh-huh. That's really cool.
Sometimes somebody will be a first cousin once removed, that's my age because my dad was the youngest of 10 kids. So they're from another generation, but we're the same age.
I get it. That's nifty. Very cool. Very cool, Jerry. Well, to those of you that are just joining us, welcome. We are currently live on YouTube through the ASBA page, but thank you so much to everyone who's here. And we're just going to keep collecting people until about 3 o'clock, and then we'll jump in and get started.
Okay, I'm looking for, there's the special meeting one. There's about like 6 different handouts, and I've got them open, but I have to click on which one on my other screen.
We have a busy afternoon and evening for sure. Linda, it looks like you're in San Francisco. Oh, you're on mute.
She doesn't want to talk to us.
I thought it would be uplifting to see the beautiful sunset over the Golden Gate.
It is. It's beautiful.
Hi, Gary.
In the mood to see the ocean, you know?
It's beautiful. Hi, Gary.
Oh, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, and we're live on YouTube right now too.
We're going to be trending. The Oracle School District trending on YouTube.
Woo woo.
So we better at least be wearing something presentable.
And everyone, Nikki is going to join us at 3:15. I'm going to go ahead and get us started for our meeting. Not right now. We still have a few minutes, but just so you know, she'll join us at 3:15.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Terry.
Let's say hi to that dark screen.
Terry, thank you so much for your help today with Garrett's password.
You're welcome. There's why my screen is dark, Jerry. I have backlit living room.
Okay, so it makes it hard to see.
Yes.
That's why I put a camera a light right there.
I have a light there too, but it's not as bright as the sun.
Then you close your shades. I've had to tell my sister to do that because I can't see her on Skype because she's got the shades out.
Yeah. Well, mine works great at night.
Bet it does.
During the day, not so much. And it's the front door windows that you saw that were real bright, and I don't have shades over those.
Hello, Edie.
Hello, everybody. I can see Jerry.
Hi, Edie. We can see your phone.
Now I can see Crystal. So I guess I can only see one person at a time. Is that right?
You can change that.
Go to the gallery view,
Yeah.
upper right corner.
Upper right.
It says
Upper right.
speaker view or gallery view.
No. No.
If you move your screen, your cursor around, you'll see it shows options and it shows that we're live on YouTube. And on the far right-hand side, there is a view word. And
You stream on YouTube. Okay.
No, upper
No.
right should say
Upper
speaker
right.
view or gallery view.
Mine says mute, stop video, share screen, participants.
No, that's at the bottom. Should
No,
be
it's at the top of mine. Maybe it's at the bottom of
You're
Okay.
looking for, it's really 9 little dots. It's 3 on top, 3 in the middle, 3 on the bottom. And if you click on that, it
Okay,
might help you see everybody at once. Does that work?
well, not at the moment, but I will keep looking. Because all of this stuff is on the top to the right, not on the left. It doesn't matter. I know what you look like. I can see you all at once. It's
But you
just
can't.
one at a time. I can
Oh.
see you one at a time.
Okay, that's all right.
Okay, I guess it's 3:01, Crystal, if you want to
Yeah,
get started,
definitely.
should we?
Definitely. We will go ahead and jump in. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We are currently streaming live on YouTube. And we are here today for our strategic goal setting workshop. Our workshop is really going to be led by Nikki Whaley. She's part of the Arizona School Board Association staff. She is in another meeting right now, so she is going to jump in with us at about 3:15 today. But we're going to go ahead and get started. And because although this is a workshop, our governing board members are here, it's a posted public meeting. And so I'm going to ask Mrs. Linda Lyon to go ahead and get us started by calling this meeting to order.
I hereby call this meeting to order. It is Thursday, December 17th, 2020 at 3:02 p.m. I'll go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, let's see, I know we have Jerry, I saw Gary. Do we have Jeff and Steve?
I didn't see Steve.
Steve won't be joining us for our 3 o'clock workshop. He
Jeff is
will
with
join
us.
us at 6 o'clock.
Okay, so we have everyone except Mr. Brown.
Correct.
And may I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll
Thank
second.
you. Mrs. Taylor moves the motion and Mr. McClure seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3, introductions.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have stakeholders from 3 different groups present with us today. We have groups from the Oracle School District Governing Board and District Office. We have representatives from Mountain Vista K-8 School, and shortly we will have Nikki Whaley from ASBA. So to get started with our introductions, we'll just go through this list, and if you're here, please jump in, introduce yourself, and let us know why you want to be part of this workshop today. So Mrs. Lyon, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, Linda Lyon. I'm currently the board president for about another month, and been on the board 8 years, and very happy that we are doing strategic planning in December so that we can take advantage of the knowledge and experience of Mr. McClure and Mr. Brown, who've been on the board for some time now. I think Jeff for 8 and Steve for 6. And because we've done a lot of strategic planning over the last few years, and we just want to take it to the next level. And I'm excited about having our community members online with us and participating in this to perhaps give us some insight.
Mr. Terrell, how about you?
Unmute. Gary, you're muted.
I'm Gary Carroll. I'm the vice president of the board for another month, as Linda said, and I've been on the board for 3.5 years. I'm the junior member, and I'm here to, well, because we called the meeting. And it's time to put the strategic goals together and approve them. Thank you.
And I'm Jeff McClure. Been on the board for 8 years. I presently have 14 days, 8 hours, and 52 more minutes to survive this board. But I'm here to help move the district forward, to use some of the historical knowledge that we have, that Linda and I have certainly, and to help us plan for the future so that the next board can be successful.
I'm Jerry Taylor, and I've been on the board, well, I'm about to start my 6th year. So it'll be an interesting next couple years with COVID, seeing how we can do our strategic goals and deal with COVID.
Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. I am Crystal Niermeyer. I'm the superintendent, and I want to echo what Mrs. Taylor just said. We typically would not be doing strategic goal setting in December. This is typically something that we would have done much earlier in the year. And this is something that just kind of kept being pushed to the next month as COVID was really our main focus of keeping students safe, keeping staff safe, and continue learning. But our strategic goals are really important for us to have and to have that stakeholder buy-in. So I'm really excited to be here today. And my internet did flicker just a minute ago. I'm working from home, as so many of us are. So if it flickers again, I do apologize. I'll jump back in as soon as I can. Mrs. Ruiz, are you here with us today?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can. Hi.
Hello, everybody. I'm interested in participating because almost any decision or goal or even strategic has some impact on the financial part. So I just want to make sure I'm aware of any of that and what I need to do to participate and help follow through.
Thank you. And I do believe that Allison Hendricks is not with us at this moment. I think she will be right back. She sent me a text and said she needed to have a quick call with FEMA. We do have a FEMA grant, so she is addressing that right now. She'll join us later. Terry McGovern, are you here with us?
Hi, everybody. I'm Terry McGovern. I'm the Director of Technical Services. I want to participate in this because I don't see any way of moving forward without the continued use of technology. And I have an opinion. So here I am.
Excellent. I don't believe I saw Craig Bonner come in. Craig is our operations specialist, and he was invited to the meeting. Craig, are you here? That's okay. No worries. And Kathleen Ochoa, are you here with us, Kathleen? Well, Kathleen is our administrative assistant. She's our right hand, and she is fantastic.
I'm right here.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Ochoa. I am the administrative assistant and the secretary to the governing board. And so I am here to document everything that happens. So do good things.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathleen. So that's really our district team. We do have great representation today from our school. And so Shannon Souley, are you here with us?
I am here. How are you?
Hi, Shannon.
Hey. So I'm here because I want to continue moving the school forward by improving academic achievement and supporting our teachers and staff and becoming one of those top schools.
I love it. Me too. Thank you, Shannon. Amy McDonald, first grade teacher, grade level chair. Are you here with us this afternoon?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy McDonald, and I teach first grade, and I'm representing kinder, first, and second grade teachers.
Thank you, Amy. I just got a text message. Jessica Niermeyer isn't going to be able to be with us today. She teaches fourth grade and she represents third and fourth grade, but that's okay. She said she'll join us for our next meeting. Is Patricia Carrillo here with us today?
I am here. I'm Patricia Carrillo. I teach fifth grade. I represent fifth and sixth grade. And I'm here just to give input from a teacher's perspective.
Thank you, Patricia. And I see that Verdine is here. Verdine teaches 7th and 8th grade science, and she represents our junior high. Hi, Verdine.
Hi, how are you guys?
I am here. I'm Patricia Carrillo. I teach 5th grade. I represent 5th.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Verdine. And let's see, is Darlene here?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here representing the reading department and assessments. And so looking forward to hear about some of the goals that we have for increasing third grade reading proficiency and also family engagement.
Excellent. Thank you, Darlene. Is Teresa Morgan here with us this afternoon? Teresa Morgan is our PTO president, and if she's not here right now, she might pop in just a little bit. Is Tiffany Webster here with us today?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Tiffany.
Yeah, I'm here for the parent perspective, just to see a little bit more about the school. I'm also a board member for Oracle Schools Foundation as well. So I just like to see what we're up to and what's the next year going to look like.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And I love that your screen says Hannah. Hannah must be using this for kindergarten.
Yes, I do use that. It switch back and forth, and you're right. I just noticed now it does say Hannah, but it's Tiffany.
That's okay. That's okay. That is our reality that we are all in right now. Awesome. And then in just a moment, Nikki Whaley should be joining us from the Arizona School Board Association. She is the ASBA Board Support and Training Specialist. And I will update everyone who's here with us today and everyone who's watching live on YouTube. The governing board and I started this process about a year ago. We did a really thorough governing board self-assessment, and we went through a variety of indicators to really hone in and see as a board and as a superintendent what we felt our strengths were, what we felt our opportunities to grow were, what we felt our goals should be. And then COVID happened and everything kind of changed and our focus really, really changed. Nikki agreed to come back and help us, continue working with what we started last year. But she also recommended that we bring more people into the conversation. And so we are so thankful to have each and every one of you here with us today. So,
and I just want to pop in and let you know, Crystal, I am here. So
you're
hi.
Here. Hi, Nikki. Welcome. Can you hear me?
Thank you. I can hear you.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to stop sharing and then I'll let you take over. Does that work?
Perfect timing. Yes.
Okay, great. Let's see here. How do I undo this?
Oh, I think I just forced you to undo it.
Okay. Let's see here. Stop share. Okay. Now you can take over.
Okay. I think you should be seeing my screen. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm Nikki Whaley. I am with the Arizona School Boards Association, and I missed some of the introduction. So if I ask you to repeat your name, I do apologize. In addition to working with the association and doing training and development, I also am a school board member in the Washington Elementary School District. I just got reelected. So I've been on for 3 years and I just got elected to a 4-year term. So I will be serving that board in that community in North Central Phoenix area for the next 4 years. So I'm kind of in your boat as well. I'm still relatively new, so for those newcomers, but then also somebody that's been through some of this process that we're going to talk about today. So why is it? Let's see. Here we go. So why do we set goals? And I'm repeating some of the things that we talked about earlier because I was back there in February and we went through some of this stuff. So some of it is repeat, but I promise only a couple slides. So today with talking about strategic planning, it's really so that we're all on the same page. It gives us the ability to have a structure, some direction, so that we know where we're going, we know what our focuses are. And that's really important, not only for us as a board, but as, I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at, am I still on the same slide? It looks like it's moving around for me.
You are, but it's no longer like just a slideshow. We could also see the other slides that were upcoming.
Okay, let's try this again.
Okay.
I am going to try share again because it was on a different screen for me and I could not see it. So
Nikki, while you're doing that, I realized we missed 2 incredibly important introductions. Edie Krall is one of our newly elected incoming governing board members. She's here with us today, and so is Mr. Camilo Gote. So I want to welcome both of them to our meeting.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we should be back on track, right? Okay, so the next purpose is unity. Unity, having goals that you're circled around and all kind of embracing helps have a more unified team, not only throughout the district, but as a board. One of the things that as a board, you all know, and if you're coming onto a board, you'll soon find out, is that it's so important to have a unified front as a board. You will not always agree on everything, but you are the face of the community. And ultimately, whatever the board decides in that vote, that's the way that it's going to go forward. And so it's really important that we have as much consensus around the goal and we have some unity and we focus our attention at the board table around these goals and not start going off of on our own pet projects or our own things. Not to say that priorities may not come up, i.e. like COVID had just come up, but that this should really focus us and bring unity to the board in terms of what we're all there to do. And then finally, accountability. It's really important for the community to know what it is that you're working on. And it helps focus them as well, because if you say, this is what we're working on, this is the direction that we're going, they know where to focus their attention. They can say, yep, they said they were going to do this, and that's what they did. Instead of constantly pointing out all the things that you didn't do, they can kind of see where you're at and you can kind of shape the conversation. But at the same time, it means that you will have to keep that at the forefront so that that accountability is there. So that's where your strategic plan comes in, and that's why we're going to talk about that today. When it comes to the role of the board and the superintendent in the strategic planning process, just a real quick recap that the governing board is on the 30,000 foot level. So their job as elected officials is to represent the community. Each of you bring a perspective that is a representation of a desire within the community. And so with that, you take an eye to policy and budget in terms of making sure that those things support the expectation and the vision for the schools. So you have a mission and a vision already, and you have established some key priorities. Today, we're going to have a chance to look at those just to make sure that that's still where we want to be. And then ultimately, you're accountable to the voters in the community. Are you providing the type of school system that the community wants to see? Are you setting expectations that jive with the expectations of the community for an educational institution? And so we're on that higher level where we're going to talk about what do we want? What is the big what in terms of what kind of a system do we want? And then the superintendent is going to be the how. How do we make that happen? And they're going to oversee the operations, the implementation of the plan, the timeline, and ultimately they're accountable to the community board, the governing board and the community. But the governing board is going to be the one that says, yes, you are keeping us on track to meet the things that we thought we were going to meet. So you're not going to necessarily say, well, you know what, we talked about third grade reading as a goal, and I think that that should stay a goal, but this is the curriculum I think you should use, and this is the teachers that I think you should hire, and that's where you start getting into to Crystal's job. So you want to make sure that you don't do that, because if you are getting into the weeds, then there's nobody with that wide lens view to make sure that all the pieces are moving. You're too busy working on a little piece. And if the superintendent's also already doing that, then who's making sure that they're taking care of the big picture, making sure that everything's working together? So it's important that each group stick with their role to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So the purpose for today's workshop is first to make sure that we have some alignment. As Crystal had said earlier, the board and she went over some things that they wanted to do, and they came up with a draft document. And what I really wanted the opportunity today, because usually when you do a strategic plan process, and I'll remind you again at the end, it's a long process. A strategic plan is usually a process that requires a lot of input from different stakeholders at different time, and it can take a while to establish. Sometimes districts will simply just decide internally amongst a few, leaders what the goals are going to be. And most of the time they hit the mark, but true strategic planning takes into account the communities and the players that are going to be directly impacted by the plan. So that's why I encourage Crystal to have some folks here today that could give some initial feedback. Again, when we end today, the idea is, do we like the goals and the objective areas that we've established already? Because if we do, and depending on the feedback that we get during this session, Crystal then has what she needs to start planning and doing a timeline and deciding what she needs to do to come back and give the board in a few months a clear outline of what needs to happen, and right down to the action steps and the campus level plans and all of that. But we're not going to leave today with a shiny new strategic plan. That's not how it works. It does take some time. So I just want to manage expectations up front. So again, we're trying to make sure that we're in alignment in terms of what we believe the needs are by getting feedback so that we can then provide guidance. And we already have some of those guiding materials. We have a vision, we have a mission. Those things help shape our goals. So we're going to review those goals today. And then at the end, we're going to talk about what actions need to happen. So I know that you probably already know this, but your vision there is a community dedicated to maximizing student achievement, which I love to see, because we at ASBA believe that student achievement is the primary responsibility of governing boards. That is what they should be focused on, and what they should be worried about is, how are we making sure that our students achieve? We also believe that equity is important in this, that we cannot ensure that students are achieving if we are not cognizant of the different things that are impacting our students. So the next thing you have here is to expand expectations by providing innovative and boundless educational environments to develop adventurous learners and responsible citizens. So what that tells me is you have a mission to go outside the box, to do all kinds of things and not be limited, so that you can provide the best opportunities possible for your students. You have some core values in here: respect, individuality, family, potential, achievement, culture, community, opportunity, responsibility, and integrity. So throughout this process, I'm going to ask you to remember these two things, to remember your mission vision, but also to remember your core values, because anything that we put in our strategic plan should be aligned to these things. We should not be putting forth any types of goal that is going to limit potential, be culturally insensitive, be disrespectful in any kind of way. You want to make sure that your plan is aligned with all of the values that you've set forth. So and we're in a little bit, we're going to go into it, but you do have some key goal areas. You have student achievement, finance administration, safe campuses, and community outreach. And in just a little bit, I'm going to go into those deeper from the document that Crystal had provided. But I just wanted to give you, that is the district goals. Along with that, the board came up with some goal areas. And I don't know if Linda, you all wound up ratifying any type of board goals. But back in, and because I know this is right around COVID time, so things got a little crazy after February 12th. But at that time, we had left with at least some ideas that the board knew that they needed to focus on some communication protocols, that they were going to have some new board members coming on. I wanted to make sure they were providing onboarding. They knew that they wanted to be better about using data and understanding data in their decision making. They knew that their strategic plan that needed some work. And that they wanted to get more. At that point, they knew that they hadn't gotten all the stakeholders in there and hadn't really, done a full strategic planning process. And then they also knew about facility and safety plans. At that point, we weren't even thinking facility and safety plans in regards to contagious disease. We were thinking just general security and making sure that our buildings were safe and not falling apart. But now that kind of takes on a whole new meaning. But what's good here is based on these goals and what we're going to go into a little bit detail, they seem to be aligned relatively. So and the details can be broken down, but at this point, I think that the board seems to be aligned with what Crystal had come up with in terms of some of the academic and different systemic needs of the district. So today, what we hope to do is to get these other stakeholders, these other practitioners and customers, I say customers, but the people that are going to be receiving the services of the district, to see what they have to say about the plans that you've made, just to make sure that they, A, kind of understand the reasoning behind some of that, and then B, to say if you missed anything, is there anything that they feel like could contribute to this, to give you some food for thought. So the goal setting process is it's continuous. It's a continuous improvement process. Goals are measured, and we'll go through what those are, but they can constantly be adapted and evolved to move it a little bit further and move a little bit further. And so what we're going to go through is the projection of where do we, assessment, where are we? Projection, where do we want to go? Implementation, how do we go about doing that? And then assessing again, how did that go once we implemented it? And so in the first step, which is where we're at right now, you have that first step of goals. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? What data is available? And how will we know we're successful? And a little bit, Crystal's going to be able to walk us through some of that information in terms of where we're at now. Because after that, we're going to go into the process of projecting. So we're going to refer to, and if you have the document, it's obviously too small to see here, but it should be an attachment that was provided. These are the strategic goals from 2019. And I'm going to go ahead and let Crystal just kind of go over those because they are different than the 2021s. And the 2021s are where we're going to spend the majority of our time today because those are the ones that we're trying to tweak to keep using for the upcoming year. So Crystal, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nikki. So from 2019 to 2020 and beyond, we generally have the same 4 goal categories. Student achievement, in 19 we called it academic achievement. Finance and administration. Infrastructure, in 19 we're calling it safe campuses. This year it's a little more specific, and community outreach. And so what I have provided is a little bit of data to let us know how we were doing towards those goals in 19, what goals have we met, and what could carry over to 2020. Next slide, Nikki. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so then, let's see, perfect, there we go. So in 2019, it's the one with the teal around it. We said that we wanted to narrow the achievement gap between the state averages in all standardized assessments. We said we wanted to improve attendance rates, and we said that we wanted to reduce inequity issues. When we came together earlier this year, we tried to hone in and be a little bit more specific. We are not married to these, but I am just going to share them with you. So first, we said the district will know, understand, and implement Arizona's college and career readiness standards. We felt that this was a really good step towards narrowing that achievement gap. Of course, we want to perform or outperform state averages, but how? How are we going to get there? Well, by really knowing and teaching the state standards well. Okay. Also, to help narrow that achievement gap, we set the goal of recruiting and retaining those highly effective certified teachers and classified staff. In 19, we had mentioned we wanted to reduce inequity issues. And in 20, we said, let's narrow that down. Specifically, what inequity issues, do we want to tackle? And so we had mentioned ones that were linked to poverty. And that's just because we do have a free and reduced lunch percentage of about 65% and our rural location. And these two really became apparent in 2020 with COVID. COVID hit our community in ways that it might not have impacted other communities because of our rural location. It's no longer kids have poor internet connection because they don't have, the money to have internet. Even our families that don't qualify for free reduced lunch just based on our location, we're having a really hard time with internet. So we really started to look at our rural location, not just as a strength, because we see it as a strength for many reasons, but also in an inequity issue that we want to tackle. And then also focusing on narrowing that achievement gap, encouraging certified teachers to earn national board certification, really, become masters of the craft and bring some exceptional teaching into our district. And on the next slide, I think I have here we go. Perfect. So what we're looking at here shows us AZ Merit and AIM Science scores from the 16-17 school year. If you look in there, 17-18 and then 18-19. I want to remind everyone that we did not test in spring of 19. So I don't have any data to share with you from the 19-20 school year. What this does show is us growing when compared to ourselves. This right here doesn't show us with the achievement gap with the state. That'll be the next slide. But really clear, we're able to see in color, and Allison Hendricks made this graphic, and it's really, really helpful. We're able to see, Darlene Kavanaugh had mentioned third grade. And so in 17-18, we had not made growth based on our comparison from 16-17. But in 18-19, we did. We made some growth in third grade with math, and we made growth in third grade towards English language arts. Looking at fourth grade, we had shown growth in math and growth in ELA. Our 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, we didn't show that growth in math, but we did show it on ELA. And then 8th grade, we did show growth both in math and in ELA. Okay. Now, again, we don't have data to show from 1920, but this is kind of a snapshot of us compared to ourselves. Next slide.
Just real quick before we go to the next slide, just as somebody that likes to look at data, I wanted to pull out a couple of things that I saw too. Between the 17-18 and the 18-19 school year, although it looks like, oh, well, we were in 7th grade, we had a plus 18, and now we have a minus 11, you have to follow the cohort. So the plus 18 is now in 8th grade, which has a negative, which had a plus 8. So there was still growth in that cohort. I think I'm looking at that right.
You are.
And likewise, when you look at the cohort of sixth graders that had a -9. When you look at them in the next year, it's a -11, but that is a decline, but it's a relatively steady. They stayed, they're still behind, but they didn't go greatly behind where they would have been before. So they were progressing, they're just still behind. So that means that they didn't maybe bump up a grade level and a half, they were already behind a grade level. So I just like to show that, because I think sometimes people forget that these cohorts move forward. And so you kind of have to remember that to follow that group, you need to look at the next year's numbers.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, so this is our goal, because we really want our kids, and our kids should perform or outperform state averages. So this is from the 18-19 school year, and our grade levels compared to the state averages. So for third grade math, for example, we see the state average was a 51 on AZ Merit. At Mountain Vista, our average was a 36. So below the state average, and that is really the norm right now for all of our grade levels that were tested by AZ Merit, with the exception of our geometry kids that year. Our geometry kids, very, very small group of kids. They're the 8th graders that were taking a sophomore level math class while they were in junior high. And so they were definitely outperforming the state, as we can see. So Nikki, from here, do you want me to go to the next goal, or what's your vision? Do you want us to spend some time here?
So I think that what we had originally talked about is to do it in chunks so that we don't forget kind of what we just talked about. So what in a minute, I will probably put in, I created a Google Doc, which is basically just has 4 headers for each of these goal areas. And what I thought that we could do is, first of all, see if there's any questions or comments outright. But then I thought we might be able to break into maybe 2 groups, because I think there's about 12 or how many of us are there today? Let's see, 18. So we can probably break into two groups and have a little bit more conversation. And I'll try to do my best to make those mixed groups, because I know I don't want like a bunch of board members in one and all the teachers in another. I'd like to have a little bit of a mix to just talk about what they're seeing. So let's start with opening it up for questions for Crystal or comments with regards to what we've seen so far with student achievement. Any questions, concerns, anything that we maybe should be looking at or maybe missed in these categories?
I don't remember back to the February discussions, honestly. There has been a couple things going on this year. But Crystal, I am a little perplexed about the district will know, understand, and implement Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards, because, on the face of it, it seems to me like we should already know those, and we should understand what they're about. And so I find myself wondering, is that really what the problem is, that we don't know the standards, first off? And secondly, I'm feeling like over the next year or two, although I do want us to be in compliance, our kids are going to have a lot of needs, and I don't want us to overly focus on the standards. That has never been my druther. And I just don't want it to take over everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Linda?
Yes.
When we did this and we were looking at all those grades, we also realized that oftentimes we were not teaching certain topics at the correct time, i.e. fractions. They were being tested at one time on fractions, but our kids were being taught it at a different time. And so by knowing and understanding, remember, Crystal, you had that thing where it showed we needed to adapt to make sure in third grade, what are we actually teaching? Second grade, what are we teaching? And make sure that they fit what the standards were for that time period.
So, okay, to that point, and I remember that, Jerry, to that point, should it say not will know and understand and implement, but should it say align the curriculum to, I hate to say teach to the test, but to align the curriculum so that it's in line with the grade level performance standards or something like that.
Isn't that what implement kind of means? Without using the word align, to implement it based on what the true standards were. I mean, everybody knows we have to teach math, we have to teach reading, but at what time?
But
that's the implementation.
I agree with Jeff in that, to me, it seems to make more sense to work on the alignment issue. You know, what is the issue with the standards? I find it hard to believe that we really don't understand them.
Yeah.
I think it's more that we're not effectively, aligning, you know, we're not effectively making it all mesh up.
I really like the verb align. Thank you, Mr. McClure. That is really great. What
And no,
Shannon,
you can't check out now, Jeff.
I know, he's like, drop the mic, I'm out. What Shannon and I have been doing with grade levels, and we did get halted, I will admit. We had a really good momentum, and then we all had to go home and things got really crazy. So that momentum has halted, but we were having really good conversations, one in particular with first grade, and Amy's here today, so she can jump in and chat about this too. But we had a moment where we were talking about, okay, what standards do we hit really, really well with the curriculum that we have? What standards do we hit? Okay, you know, the curriculum may or may not hit it so great. And then what standards are we thinking, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to teach that before we go to second grade? And for math, I believe it was math, Amy can correct me, we were basically all really great. Like our curriculum hit what we needed to hit. But when it came to ELA, there were some definite gaps there. And Amy and Christine in first grade, they are exceptional teachers. And so for that grade level to have a few standards where it was like, oh my goodness, I wasn't aware that this is something kids need to master by second grade, but by going to second grade was like this really eye-opening moment. So I do believe that our teachers pretty well know the standards, but I do believe that we get in a habit of really just focusing on the curriculum. And we have to remember that curriculum is national, and they can say that it's based on the Common Core, but we're technically not Common Core in Arizona. We're technically the Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards. Pretty much the same thing, you know, a couple little changes here. But I think it's very important for our teachers to be very comfortable with the standards, very familiar with the standards. And so whether or not we make this a district goal or a board goal, this is definitely going to continue to be something that Shannon and I are really, really working hard on, because we think it's really important and going to lead to better student achievement.
So I'm going to interject here, and I'll share this document at the end of the conversation, but I think rather than breaking us into groups, I'm going to just keep the conversation going, because I know some of us we all know little bits of that, and I don't want anybody to not miss this rich conversation. So I'll turn it back over to anybody else that wants to contribute to the conversation. But the note that I have right now is that really what we're looking for in that first, and I'm going to call those objectives. So you have the goal of student achievement, and the goal is to narrow the achievement gap. And our objective in that would be and I changed the note to say align standards with curriculum pacing guidelines is what I'm hearing. And I like what you said, Crystal, about, I know in our district, people forget what their kids are supposed to know and already know in second grade. And so they wind up spending a lot of third grade time doing second grade thing and then missing the third grade standards because they needed that. So like, I think understanding a little bit more. And the thing is it's a lot to learn. And sometimes we have newer teachers that might not have a masterful understanding of the curriculum standards. And so, you know, what I see that to be is, okay, if we have the objective of aligning our standards and curriculum pacing, when we get to the action planning part, that's when Crystal and her team will say, well, how do we do that? Okay, we need PDs around this. We need to do a curriculum review. We need to yada, yada, yada. But I do like that. And I took the align the standards to the curriculum pacing. The other thing that I heard is not over focusing on the test. We have this goal about the achievement, but we also have an objective on here to reduce inequity issues linked to poverty in our rural location. So what I have on here is how do we assess people's readiness or ability to participate in this academic process. So, you know, we may want to reword that: work to reduce inequities and issues linked to poverty in our rural location that prohibit engagement in academic learning. Because then that tells you, okay, now what do we need to do to make sure our kids are getting fed, getting sleep, getting electronics, getting whatever it is that they need in order to overcome those barriers or inequities so that they can work towards that. And what that shows us is that we may find as we do that, that achievement goes up. But even if achievement stays, sometimes keeping achievement staying the same is a win in and of itself, given the amount of inequities that happened this year. And not seeing a significant slide would be a win. So I did put that on there because I think that that is something that districts should give themselves grace on, given, you know, how difficult this was for our families and our teams under the current situation. Is there anything else that any of our staff members or families have to contribute to, you know, how do we how do we narrow this gap based on these objectives that we see here on the page? What else? I also, just sorry, real quick. I like the Encourage Certified Teachers National Board Certification. I think that hits two of your things. One is recruit and retain highly effective certified teachers. My former HR human resources person is saying yes, by giving them an opportunity to go after those certifications and develop themselves, you're not only going to have them retained because they're getting invested in and developed, but that also we do know that helps combat some of the inequities and poverty, because those teachers know how to tackle and overcome those barriers a little bit better. They know how to adapt curriculum a little bit better to do that. So I really like that because I feel like that one there helps do all of the three things above that.
Nikki, I have a question. And basically, it's to get a national board certification by a teacher. Do they have to pay a tuition to attend these classes?
I believe that there is a fee involved, and you know, just like my mom's a nurse, she has to pay, you know, $500 every so often to recertify, you know, get certified. So I do believe that there's a cost involved, and districts handle that in various ways.
You guys, I know that. Excuse me, Nikki. I know that the organization that works this, and it's escaping my mind right now.
K-12.
Yeah, K-12. I spoke with the director herself, and they have scholarships available. So I have a feeling that, especially if we're talking onesie twosies, initially our teachers aren't going to have to pay, and the district won't have to pay.
Because I believe I read it's about $1,900 to get that certification.
Yeah, but they want rural schools involved, and so again, I think we're going to get funding to do that.
Okay.
So anything else, when we talk about student achievement, is there an objective that we feel is just, and granted, you don't want to have 15 things up here, but is there anything burning from anybody in the community that says, you know, there's a major objective I think we're missing here?
Come on, teachers.
And you can also use the chat. I know some people aren't good at like thinking on the spot and it might come to you later. So as we move forward, this is not a one and done. It's not case closed. So if things come to you while we move this forward, please feel free to enter them on the chat. Just give me a little notice, like with regards to student achievement, ... And I'll go back and add that to our sheet so that when we review everything at the end, your contributions can be added. And you can feel free to chat that to me personally or to the group. I believe you have the option to send to the group or to send to the presenter. So hearing none on that, I'm going to go ahead and move us to the finance and administration. Okay. So I will turn it back over to Crystal.
Thank you. Okay. So in 19, we said ensure financial solvency and the ability to achieve district academic goals. For 20, we honed that in a little bit. And you can see we have fewer objectives. So in 19, one of our objectives was the district will ensure that spending aligns with strategic goals. Again, we were like, of course, yeah, definitely. But how? Like, how is that measurable? How do we know that, we've really done that? 2, the district will secure funding and hire a quality school counselor to serve the social emotional needs of students. Yay. We got the school safety grant through ADE, and this connects to hire and retain quality people, because we are now tonight going to approve or recommend to the governing board that they approve our 3rd counselor. We have not been able to retain them. And I think part of that is also just due to COVID and people moving and telehealth. So we did get that grant. So I would check mark on that one. And now it's just retaining exceptional people. The district will focus on the development of effective student programs, and the district will continue to explore options pertaining to the sale of the Oracle Ridge property. For 20, we kept the district will ensure that spending aligns with our strategic goals. Absolutely. The district will continue to seek grants that support our strategic goals, and the district will develop a plan to sell the Oracle Ridge property. And that is where we are. And I'm open to discussion and feedback. I don't specifically have data for this one, just because we got the counselor and a lot of our programs are kind of on hold right now. We did get our gifted and talented back up and running online, but and then for the Oracle Ridge property, we thought it was better to just have that word there, like plan to sell the property, instead of like continue to explore options, but come up with a plan to sell.
Crystal, we've had a lot of success with grants. And so I thought maybe I don't know if we want to add, the district will ensure spending and financial assistance requests align with our strategic goals, or grant requests or something like that, because we do have the capability to get additional funding. We have had a lot of success, and that the seeking of that funding should align with our strategic plan. And then I wondered on the Oracle Ridge property, if we want to shoot for the stars and say that we will approve a plan to sell the property versus just develop a plan. And that's my input.
I like that. Approve a plan.
The question is, do we even have the plan in place yet to approve?
I will be honest, we don't. That was one of the things that has really been pushed aside. Shouldn't be pushed aside, but it's something that hasn't been on the front burner.
So I wouldn't suggest that we plan to approve something until we make the plan on that. Now, Linda, did I understand you that
on that first one, district will ensure that maybe spending/grants.
Well, I said
Working.
spending and financial assistance requests or grants, same thing.
So, because spending includes grants, but to include
Yeah.
the word grants in it.
It was just a thought. I'm not hard over on it. It was just a thought. You're right. Spending does include that. I think it's a nod to the fact that we should be seeking grants.
And we are, and that would be the second.
Yeah, that's the second one.
And we really are doing that, and it's very helpful.
Yep. So like I said, I'm not hard over on that. It was just a thought.
I think that what I'm hearing though is that I like the spending aligns with our strategic goals and that continue to see grants of support. I think that some of the grants in and of itself, you have to spend it on what the grant is for, right? So, but ideally you're only applying because it takes work to apply for grants. So ideally you're using your grant writing, whoever that is, time and energies, focusing on grants that are aligned to your goals. So that is because sometimes people go after all the grants and don't spend a really good amount of time writing a really stellar grant proposal for the ones that they really, really need. So I think that would be, I see that in that goal, and that makes perfect sense to me. But some of the grants are more open-ended. So what you're talking about in terms of aligning spending to the spending of grant dollars, that also makes sense because some grants are more open-ended, like you can spend it on any of these things, and then making sure that you're again aligning those to something that's supporting the strategic plan. Like if the grant money is available for professional development, I would recommend identifying ways to support your curriculum or ways to bring in math curriculum supports or PD around those types of things. If that's what the grant copies, as opposed to the grant covers everything from PD to, books and computers. It's like, okay, well, what do you need most? You need all of those things. All of those things would be great. But what thing do you think is going to have the biggest impact on your strategic plan?
Yeah. Now, Nikki, clarify this thing, because when we were talking about this back in February, there are many, many goals that we might want, and we needed to cut down those number of those goals to ones that we knew we could at least be working on. I mean, we could have under finance and administration 20 goals, but we're focusing on 3 right now. It doesn't mean we're ignoring other things.
Right. Work is still going to be happening. It's in the background, but the idea being that whatever other work is happening shouldn't come at the expense of these goals. Because these are the top priorities. If you get more done, if you get some legwork behind another goal, that's great. Also, these should be goals that are not already a slam dunk. So in terms of, I think maybe putting in a goal of, because again, we're looking at establishing this for your 21 goal, like 21, 22 goal, because this year is pretty much done. We're almost halfway through year 20. So we're really looking to, by the time that we get this through the strategic plan process, Crystal makes an action plan and she gets it back before the board. We're looking at spring again. So we're really looking at approving a strategic plan for 21, 22. And so with that being said, I think approving a plan to sell, that gives you some work to work on, because if you're going to put on your agenda, approve a plan and you already have a plan developed, why make that a goal? That's just like a matter of a board meeting. So I think creating a thing of we will approve a plan takes into the fact that you better get on developing that plan, because you can't go without it.
There's one thing that I don't think that we are considering, and that's if we fill a position such as the school counselor out of a grant, how do we ensure grant year to year? Are we prepared to turn around if the grant is not awarded in the second year, to turn around and keep the position open? I've seen other government organizations that have filled positions, the grants dried up and they had to get rid of people. And that's one thing we have to be aware of, though, when we fill the positions for especially personnel.
That is an excellent point. And it may be, you only have 3 objectives underneath this admin one. And maybe one of how to maintain critical grant support staff. And so what I mean by that is most of those safety grants, you apply for either SROs or counselors, and then they come back and they tell you, you got this, you got an SRO and 3 counselors or vice versa. And you've got them usually for 3 years. That gives you some time to maybe make a goal around create or, new or identify revenues to maintain social worker past the 24-25 school year, because that's when the grant's going to run out. Because that gives you a few years to either start socking away some of your carry forward or identifying, shifting your prior spending over the next couple of years to start making that available to make that a permanent staff position where you're not grant dependent. So you could create a goal around shoring up and then identify what those critical grant funded programs or people are that you want to start creating a plan for.
I want to throw this to Dawn and to Allie and to Terry. I know when I think of finance, I really think about the capital bond. We spend a lot of time, the logistics of the capital bond. And so Dawn, Allie, Terry, do you think it would be appropriate to have a goal here specific to that? And I'll throw Nikki into that as well. Maybe, what other districts do when they're, working with capital bond dollars. What does everyone think?
I think the capital bond is a short-term thing with all of the definition has been set. We know exactly what we're going to do with that. So I'm not sure that it would be appropriate to put it here, just my 2 cents.
Okay.
I agree with Terry, except that we could say something like deliver, on time and under budget or within the budget. It could be that kind of broad thing.
What we also need to remember, there's additional capital funding that isn't tied to the bond. I don't know if you're referring to that capital monies or if you're referring just to the.
I was thinking about capital bond, but Dawn, you're absolutely correct. It's like an objective specific to capital dollars.
Yeah, I agree with Terry in regards to the bond. It's pretty laid out. We've committed to reporting to everybody, something we will do. We don't have a choice but to be on budget. And it's something, but doesn't mean we're not going to report. We are, and it can be here, but we're going to be doing that anyway. But there is those other capital funds. It's maybe $250,000 to $300,000 a year if we're lucky. It depends on enrollment. So.
I would say leave the bond out of it because that's pretty much set in stone. These are things you're looking to do out in the future. And the bond is going to go away. I mean, looking at the construction schedule, it's going to be gone in 2 years and you're done. So don't worry about that because that's halfway into your next year.
The only time
this is the 2021 goal list. I mean, these are the goals for this year.
True, but as Nikki pointed out, this year's half over. So you need to be setting some of your goals further out to go to 21, 22. And, they may adjust again a little bit, but if you're just looking at 20, I mean, you can say, gee, look what we did the last 6 months. Ooh, move it forward.
The only thing I've seen in terms of bond, and again, I'm going just from my experience and a couple others that I've worked specifically about, their strategic plans, is if you're going out for a bond, you might put something in here to create, a model, and that might be part of your strategic goals is to prepare for going out for a bond. But usually once the bond is already there, it's not like it's a goal. It's kind of like it has to happen. The other way that I've seen it is some people don't have a clear, what am I trying to say? That we have a clear capital a system, meaning a tracking system of what capital needs are where they're at in the process of prioritization so that people can know what kind of a bond they might need in the future or where their priorities may be. So, you know, if that's something that you feel like you don't really have a handle on in terms of a way of, you know, how often are you checking your buses, or how often are you checking your, you know, if you don't have a maintenance schedule and capital schedule of needs and status of when you may need that in the future, that might be a plan that you may want to put on a strategic goal.
Nikki, that's actually, of course, a good idea. Of course, because it came from you. I'm so pleased that you could help us today, so thank you. You know, Jeff, you remember when we were really focused on that 5-year upgrade plan?
Yes.
We looked at it all the time, and I understand we may very well have it, but I don't feel like I've seen it in a while. And that's probably because we've been, you know, focusing on the bond and the override and all that. But so that might be something we want to think about revisiting.
I agree. It's so Dawn and you and Dawn and what's your name? Crystal. You second one down. Do you keep up on that 5-year plan?
We do. I have a copy of it right over here. But you're right. It's not something that we've been talking about so much with the governing board. And Nikki, I love what you said, you know, about incorporating that with a maintenance schedule and helping us, you know, think 2 steps ahead. And I think that would be a great goal.
So you loop the new board into the capital expenditure plan that you have and get them familiar with it.
I will make that be a big part of our onboarding.
Yes, that's an important thing to see how your monies are going to be spent and how you've laid out buying curriculum and buses. I mean, Linda and I have seen that over and over, but I think the rest of the board has not. So
I think we need to look
what you said you're going to deliver.
I'd like to see something regarding the bond issue back with student achievement, that the buildings, the equipment that we are purchasing, the library, the new room, are shown to help student achievement in how we do the buildings. In other words, we still haven't designed for sure what the buildings are going to look like inside. How are we doing those buildings to make sure that they fit our goal of student achievement? That's where I think the bond stuff should go back to.
I think you're going to see that at the board meeting tonight, Jerry. You're going to see the start of that. And looking ahead, I think you're going to be working on those stakeholder ideas for those classrooms in another month. I think I saw that on the architecture plan. Is that true?
But that should be a goal that should be part of the student achievement goal, because it
is a goal, but it's part of the bond package. It's what's already being worked on. And I think that, I mean, you can put that in there, but you're already working toward that. You just haven't actually seen that yet.
I'm sorry I cut out there for a second. Jerry, what was your proposed goal or proposed objective?
The information when we were referring to the bond, rather than think of it as finances under finance and administration, it should be focused under student achievement, because that's the whole goal of having the new buildings, is to promote the student's achievement. So if we're going to make changes to a goal, that's where it should go. So to make sure that we end up with something that promotes student achievement in our new bond and construction.
I feel like
it would be very difficult. The only feedback I have on that, it would be very difficult to directly correlate a building or an equipment to outcome and achievement. Because you'd have to be like, okay, now we have this new building. How many people saw better grades, and how can you tease out all the other factors like standards and teacher and, you know, some of the other things that you're doing and make that aligned. I think that keeping it as a financial goal that you are fulfilling your grant as proposed. You can look at that student achievement, but it'd be really hard to make that like a measurable outcome and directly correlate that. That's the only feedback I would have on that.
And I just typed this in the chat, but we have been very clear with our design and construction partners that what Jerry said is what we want where we want the focus to be. And so they understand that.
Okay, well, I did write on here under finance and administration, just because I want to make sure that I get the things that we talked about. And again, these are just for further consideration, but taking notes on this piece of it so that we can move to the next piece would be, so under financial, I have grants and financial assistance, spending requests, et cetera, will be aligned with the goals and the strategic plan that we may want to add that approval of a plan to sell the property. So changing that from develop a plan to approve a plan. We talked about possibly, this would be a new goal. Some of these are mostly rewording, but we talked about a possible new goal of plan to create a plan to maintain key grant funded support staff or certified staff such as social workers. And then the other one we just kind of got done talking about, and these, we don't have to accept them all, but I just wanted to capture in the notes, was to establish or update a system for tracking capital needs in relation to our maintenance schedule.
I'd like to ask, I don't want to put her on the spot, but Tiffany is not shy from my experience. And I'm just wondering, what are you thinking so far, Tiffany? Do you think we're remotely close to where you think we ought to be, or is this a big surprise to you, or what are you feeling?
Let me unmute. No, it's really interesting to hear some of the goals, certainly finance as far as like some of the structures that need to be changed, not only like the physical buildings on campus, but as well as far as your grants and things like that. So, I mean, I don't really have a lot of input of what you should change, but I think your goals going forward, I agree too. So I'm curious to see in the next year what will happen with that.
Tiffany, I have a question for you. How do you feel in terms of the systems that you have in place for auditing and maintaining records? And are you guys doing pretty well on all of those reports that are coming back? Or is that something that that you're working on?
I don't think that question's for me.
Tiffany is with the PTO, and she's a parent in the organization.
Oh, okay. I thought she was with the finance team.
No,
sorry.
No, that would be more Dawn or a question of that nature.
So Dawn, right? Nikki, you have that question for finance folks?
Yeah. You were asking in regards to audit. Is that what you're inquiring about, if we're comfortable or where we need to be? Is that what,
yeah,
is that your
so
question?
yeah, sometimes folks are like, we want to make sure that we want to do basically a self audit. Like, how are we doing? Do we consistently do really pretty well on our audit? Do we consistently, get all of our documentation in on time that we need to get to the various state departments, et cetera? Like, is all of that purchasing, procurement, is all of that stuff moving smoothly, or is that something that the board should be following up or providing support around?
I think in regards to the auditing and the outcome and following all of our processes, I think we've done very well. We've done very well every year on our audit. It is challenging to meet the deadlines and the time frames, but we have, and we've done well. So if there's not a way to prevent or to give more time, then no, we don't need anything. We just need more time.
Okay. And I'm just asking because their strategic goal, as Jerry had said, these are just some of the things that we need to work on, and doesn't mean that you're not going to keep making sure that things are getting turned in and all of that. I just wanted to know where that was. And of course, when Crystal goes to work with everybody to operationalize these objectives, on down the chain, when she comes to the team on regards to grants and financial assistance, I'm sure there's going to be goals around compliance with grant,
Sure.
grant expectations and all of that. But
Yes.
okay. Well, the questions I have, if everyone's good, I think we can move to the next section. Let me make sure I get over here. Okay, Safe Campus, Crystal.
Thank you. In 19, we said the district will pursue additional projects through the State School Facilities Board, and we have done extraordinarily well with that goal. Since this goal or objective was established, the bleachers in our gymnasium have been replaced. The flooring in our cafeteria has been replaced. Pipe project has gone through, and then we're currently working on some big roofing projects with the SFB, as well as some HVAC projects. So great progress is being done with that objective. In 19, our second objective was the district will continue to pursue a capital bond to improve educational efficiency, health and safety of students and staff at Mountain Vista. And in November 19, we got that capital bond. So yay for that. So in 20, thinking about safe campuses, we had mentioned the district will continue to pursue projects through the SFB. The district will promote the health and safety of students and staff through the delivery of our capital bond projects. And the district will maintain and be prepared to implement emergency response plans. And that is what we have. So I'm interested, teachers and Tiffany, if Teresa's part of the conversation, I'm really interested in what our stakeholders think about this one, and possibly some suggestions for other objectives.
I'm happy about the re-roofing of the building I'm in and actually seeing people come in and take pictures of our rooms. So I knew things were moving, because I am in one of the classrooms where the rain comes down and I have to move computers and my panels are getting mold. So I absolutely love that all of that's getting redone, and it was top priority.
I think where you have the district will maintain and be prepared to implement emergency response plans. We do have an emergency response plan, and I think it should possibly say that it will be updated, as it's probably 3 years old at this point. And we have run a full school evacuation according to that plan, I believe. And that was a few years ago. I think, Crystal, you just started. Mm-hmm. But I think you should probably go through and say you will update that, just bring it in line with today's whatever issues we have, because a few things have changed, I would imagine.
Through our experience of COVID, there's a lot that we could add to our emergency response plan. Things that we didn't know would even be a thing. We've done. We've shut down the campus. We've done a number of different things. So I think that's a great objective.
We're going to stick it on your strategic goal for the supervisor evaluation.
That works. One way or the other. Nikki, what are your thoughts about these objectives and the goal? Are there things that other districts do that we might not be thinking about?
Well, so you have this objective: the district will promote health and safety of students and staff through the delivery of capital bond projects. And I'm thinking about, if you were to put that into a SMART goal, like how would you know that that was happening? What does that look like? And so I kind of, and when I heard, and I forgot, I don't know if it was Patricia who kind of said that they liked when they saw people coming in with the camera, they knew something was going to happen, like happening. I put down in the notes here that I'm taking, communicate what's happening with the bond project and how that impacts the health and safety of students. And to piggyback on that, if I were, the superintendent trying to demonstrate that, how am I going to implement that? How am I going to demonstrate that? I would begin to think of how can you get feedback, create a survey, do something where people can say how they feel about their health and safety in this environment. How can we measure how staff, how our families and our students feel in terms of their being in a healthy, safe environment. And I would also maybe define health and safety, because you also have this I know that you don't have a clear equity, necessarily value or goal, but I know that you all are interested in. So when we say health and safety, do we also mean the emotion and safety of kids and feeling included? And if so, if that's a safe campus, what are some goals that we could, or objectives that we could create that bans the scope of safety and the physical safety in terms of buildings? Linda, if you're talking, you're muted.
We do talk about emotional well-being in the goal, but we didn't really address it in the objective below. And it could have something to do with more the whole child or the wraparound, services that we've talked about before. For example, the delivery of food that Edie and company just recently worked for the winter break. But also, I keep feeling like the district maintaining and implementing the emergency response plan, it doesn't feel like a very worthy goal to me, because it feels like something that, it's just doing business. That's like we teach kids, that's kind of what that goal feels like to me. And I might be off the mark there, but that's my thought.
I agree with you, except for I liked and I don't know if it was Jeff or who said that that's why they recommended that we review and update it if it's been a little while. So if it has been a little while and there's a new frame of mind in terms of when we're thinking about safety, we're not just thinking about physical safety, but contagion, situations or what's going to happen with our sick protocol or, those kinds of things, then, a goal of reviewing and updating the emergency response plan wouldn't be bad. But I do agree with you. If it was a solid plan and it's just keep doing what you're doing, then yeah, maybe not a strategic goal.
I think that's a great point, Nikki. And actually, we may be bringing as Gary mentioned, our plan really is, I think, a really great plan and worthy of maybe some recognition at next year's annual. So we may be submitting it for something to be able to come in and talk about it. So that could kind of be our goal without saying that, Crystal, that, we want to make it something worthy of presenting on at the annual conference in 2021.
Well, that sounds like quite an objective, Mrs. Lyon. Update the plan and make it award worthy and make sure that ASB wants you to present it at the annual conference. That was great.
I kind of feel like I'm getting pressured into selecting a breakout session a year in advance.
Please don't feel pressured to do that, Nikki.
I'm sure it'll be worthy, and I'll be, begging for you guys to participate.
So the inside story of this is this. My predecessor, Dennis Blauser, created our current emergency response plan, and it was very good. And so Arizona, I'm not sure if it was ADE or if it was the health department or one of the state agencies asked him to go and present this plan to other superintendents because they said it was so good. And Dennis, wasn't as much of like a people person. He's a people person. The idea of going and presenting, made him a little nervous. And so he said, thanks, but no thanks. And so that's where the whole thing comes from.
Okay. Well, now I really want to see it.
The plan that is statutory in nature, it's required, and it's required to be updated every year. Such as we're constantly changing phone numbers and things like this, email address.
Right.
So that can be done. We have done things, I know recently, renewed an agreement with a church where we can move students to if we had to have them off campus because of an emergency. It's being done, and it's going to have to be redone because as these new buildings are constructed, you need to show locations of every gas and water and electrical shut off and everything. And there is a statewide document that tells you what you should have in the plan that's available on the internet.
So this is what I have written underneath safe campuses for you all to noodle on. I got that from that's the Tracy Benson. Noodle on these ideas that we can kind of see if we want to add some objectives or add some meat to the objectives that are listed there. The first one is review, update, and communicate out emergency response plans and protocols. And those could include everything from, your evacuation drills, but to also given, cold and flu and the expectations around that for staff and community. Any other kind of things that might fall under those emergency plans. And that includes updating them to include your new buildings too. So it seems like that update, review and update and communicate emergency plans might not be a bad one to have when we're thinking about the 21-22 and beyond, school year. And that kind of brings in what was talked about like seeing and hearing about what's happening. One of the things our district did was we have a print shop, and we had the print shop make these big banners that said your bond dollars at work. This new facility is going to allow us to have so many more computers, this much more, time for this. Teachers will be able to do X. So we were able to put that blasted on the side of the building as the construction was happening about what's happening in that location, and staff were given an update about when they can expect, to be in their rooms and things like that. So all of that could be part of communicating out either your bond projects or response plan, depending on these things here, which might be, when I say that, I mean, referring back up to the finance goals and stuff that we just talked about and communicating those out. And then the other one is maybe consider adding an objective around the whole child or social and emotional learning when we're talking about safety. And maybe adding something about, the district will ensure that there is because I don't know what kind of program you use campus-wide in terms of discipline. I don't know if you're a PBIS or, so maybe it's we are going to ensure that we continue to certify our schools in PBIS. Maybe it's we're going to develop a climate and culture team dedicated to ensuring staff feel supported and what do staff want to retain, because that's will feed back into your other goal of retaining and recruiting staff. And that's a safe campus. Is the campus safe and inclusive for teachers and staff to want to work there? So a committee or creating something like that could be a strategic goal for the upcoming year.
That's awesome.
Linda, did you just throw Dolce in the San Francisco Bay?
Yep, she did.
Yep.
Wow.
She's swimming down there. She's taking a little swim.
Okay. So we're going to go to the next section, the last section here, because I have that we're at 4:30 and we go, when does your board meeting start? 6:30 and we're going to take a half hour break? 6. Okay. So we are going to go to, we were going to 6, but I'm going to try to get you out a little bit early so you have a little break between the two.
Thank you.
So let us move forward and go over the next section, which is that community outreach piece.
Thank you. All right. So in 19, we said the district will continue to partner with the Oracle Schools Foundation to enrich the educational experience of students in preschool through 8th grade. And we kept that for 20. In 19, we said the district will support meaningful engagement with a variety of stakeholders. And then we listed a bunch of groups that we had been working with. And for 20, the district will recruit governing board members that represent Oracle's diverse community. We have an exceptional board. We are so appreciative of our board. As soon as this meeting at 6 o'clock, when Mr. Steve Brown, is recognized, we no longer have a member of our governing board from Oracle itself. Our governing board members are going to be from Saddlebrook and Saddlebrook Ranch and Eagle Crest, which are definitely still in the district, but we won't have a member in Oracle. So we had mentioned that that was something that we're interested in. Encourage familial involvement with our parent-teacher organization. Our PTO is back and we are so happy to have them. We're getting back to, we have, our officers, and they're the ones that are making it all happen. And Tiffany can kind of attest to that. So, do we want to have 5 people doing 30 hours of work, or do we want to have 30 people doing 5 hours of work, and involvement? And then last, the district will support meaningful engagement with a variety of stakeholders in our community. And that was a little bit more broad than, specifically listing out different organizations. In 19, we were out shaking hands all the time. Me and Jeff and Linda and Steve and Gary and Jerry, and basically also in preparation for the bond going up for election, but we were out in the community all the time. And this year we haven't so much. I know a lot of that is based on COVID, but we definitely, still want our community groups to feel connected with what we're doing, and we want to feel connected with them. So I don't have the perfect words for a goal, but that's kind of or for an objective, that's kind of where I'm at in my mind. Everybody.
Crystal, would I be able to just interject for just a second? Okay, so not to take away from the PTO organization, but I was wondering if we could somehow include it to be a little bit broader. Ali Hendricks, Shannon Soule, and I are involved in maintaining the Title I grant. And one of the key components of the grant addresses academic family involvement and school partnership. They suggest that we start a group, that we have people suggesting what's the responsibility of our students, family, and our staff, and they would like to see regular meetings.
Okay. And Darlene, I like that. Well, I know we need to do that for the grant, but I like it. And that goes, this isn't a governing board goal or a district goal. This is like a crystal goal.
Okay.
But I have this vision, and Shannon knows this and Allie knows this. When you walk into our cafeteria in the future, I want it to feel like you're walking into the gym, but for academics. I want banners hanging from the ceiling of science fair winners and spelling bee champions and National Junior Honor Society pictures. And I just want it to be this haven for academics, and where I want our culture to be that, where it's cool to be smart, and it's cool to be on the honor roll, and it's cool to work hard and just really make academics a cool thing that students want to be part of. And so what you're talking about, Darlene, an academic family involvement group, goes right along with that, because if kids, are excited about academics, we want their parents to be excited and be involved in it too. So I really like that idea.
And isn't that also why we're doing a parent academy? Trying to get it, because that is bringing the parents in, even though it is going to be through Zoom. But we're trying to involve them at this time period with everything.
Yes, Jerry, that is correct. We are using that as documentation under the grant that we're fulfilling that requirement. Thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm taking notes and I have some thoughts, but I want to see if there's anything else before I throw my 2 cents in.
Just a note that when we're doing meaningful engagement, we are doing, both Linda and Crystal are doing regular letters in the local papers, both in the adult communities and in the non-adult communities, so that people know on an ongoing basis what we're doing.
Are you calling Eagle Crest Ranch a non-adult community?
Isn't that where you live?
That's where I live.
It's not a solely adult community like
Just
Saddlebrook.
checking, okay, just checking.
This is just wordsmithing. In the first objective, we don't need to say experience of students in preschool through 8. We could just say experience of all students. I mean, it just makes it shorter. It's no big deal.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not going to change my screen sharing because that's always so confusing, but some of the comments that I have on here is we use the word engagement a lot, and I do a training and it's part of my equity work that there's a difference between involvement and engagement. I just want to share a quote with you. It's from Larry Ferlazzo, he's an award-winning teacher and community organizer in California that's focused on parent involvement and engagement. And he says that a school striving for family involvement often leads with its mouth, identifying projects, needs, and goals, then telling parents how they can contribute. School striving for engagement, on the other hand, tends to lead with its ears, listening to what parents think, dream, and worry about. So my question for you is, are you looking for ways to provide meaningful engagement for these families to have agency in their children's experience in school? Or do you just want them to participate? And do you just want to send letters and you just want to give them information and let them know what we're doing? Or do you want to create opportunities for there to be back and forth?
We want it all. I think we just figure it's going to come in baby steps.
Yeah. Okay. Because my suggestions then, and what I wrote on, let me go back to my Google form. Is perhaps like for the last one, you say district will support meaningful engagement with a variety of stakeholders in our community. Pretty vague, I would say, develop and implement at least 2 meaningful ways to engage families. Or if it's not really engagement that you're looking for, which means, having them be part of the decision making, maybe it's just opportunities to receive feedback. And that's a good goal too, because a lot of districts don't have a way for the governing board or for even, staff to get ongoing feedback on how things are going and to give their input. I mean, you can write to the board, or you can go to the request to speak, or you can file a complaint, but there's not a system in place to get that type of feedback, especially if you have feedback around some of these strategic things that you're working on. So a goal might be to develop and implement a system by which we can gather ongoing feedback on our goals or on fill in the blank, whatever it is that you specifically want to make sure that you're getting that feedback on. The other thing, and I'm glad to hear that the title piece, that's a big opportunity. And so reviewing the Title I parent engagement piece and developing a plan that outlines how you will work to develop engagement throughout your campuses. Because one of the things I can tell you with we have 32 schools, they're all K-8, but we have some schools that are doing it totally different than another, or some that are not doing it at all. And there's no kind of, for a while, there wasn't a centralized expectation about what that looked like. We weren't learning from the best and developing a plan that worked for most. I mean, of course, every school might be different and need some tweaks, but we are kind of just leaving people out into the wind to create their own plan instead of having some kind of oversight and a body that could provide feedback in order to establish a practice that works for most campuses with some tweaks. So that might be one of the things that you do, is to, how would we create this? In Washington, we had what we called the FACE committee. We started a couple of years ago, Family and Community Engagement Committee. And that was a standing committee of community partners, parents, and teachers and staff. And the first thing that we did was identified what the purpose of the committee was. What is it that we wanted to do? And they decided that they wanted to create a feeling of customer services that made families and community members feel welcomed and valued. So once we established that, then we started to come up with what would that look like? What would need to be in place? And we came up with some goals of the committee. And then the committee then gave those goals to administration that worked to implement how they would continue to do that. But the point being that a committee was formed, ideas were framed, and plans were made. And that took some initiative. That wasn't a strategic goal of ours. We just had a general goal of engagement, and that's what the administration came up with. So I'm not saying that you must do this, but the goal was to come up with a mechanism by which to get more ongoing feedback, meaningful feedback from families.
Thank you, Nikki. I might reach out to you and pick your brain a little bit more about that.
I will connect with our family person that was the lead for that project. So
thank you.
Crystal, that sounds a lot like what we did for the bond when we went out to the community and said, hey, you come in and talk about what we're going to do and have them involved. It's the same thing, just a different
purpose.
Different purpose, yeah.
And I would say that's a different goal than creating a communication system for garnering feedback. That's a different goal of how are we going to improve the opportunity to interact with our community is a different goal from just creating a family, feedback tank. It's slightly the same, but slightly different. And that's why I like the idea that you had there. The district will support meaningful engagement with a variety of stakeholders. I just kind of tweaked that to say they will develop and implement at least 2 meaningful ways to develop engagement with stakeholders and community, because then that gives you some flexibility of, okay, we want to try at least 2 things and get them going and see how they work out.
I like it.
Any other feedback on this area? I had another question. It had to do with your first one, partner with Oracle Foundation. I would say partner with Oracle Foundation and others, because I believe there was a thing about wanting to get connected with other community organizations, businesses, groups. That way you're not putting it all on your foundation to come up with all of the funding and all of the, stuff behind that. But I would encourage you to say enrich educational experiences in what way? Are we talking about before and after school? Are we talking about enrichment, cultural enrichment? Are we talking about promoting, math and STEM fluency? I mean, I would kind of try to narrow that in a little bit more about what do you mean by enrich, because that's pretty broad.
I think actually that's really valid input, because one of the things that happened this year that our foundation funded was they funded touchless water fountains and also hotspots. And the touchless, I think the hotspots is great. The touchless water fountains, to me, it bothers me a little bit, because that's like something, state money should be paying for, not the foundation. And, we're just grateful that they're doing it and that it allows us to keep our children safe, and it's all good. But I think as we progress, if we can make sure that the right streams of revenue are going to the best use, that's probably important. And I think what Nikki said helps in that regard.
Yeah, because that money from the foundation is, that glory-free, no strings attached kind of money, right? That you don't have to like report on a certain thing. I mean, you do, but I mean, it's not like grant money or all those other buckets of money that are very specific in what you can use them for. And as you said, if there's other funding streams that can meet the need, maybe not use the foundation's money for that. And that takes some guidance from the district in terms of what telling that foundation, this is what we need your help with. And or other businesses, if you have a team of, oftentimes we see that businesses want to help, and they'll probably help by buying your teacher's food all the time, which is great. But if you can guide their giving or guide their donations in a way that helps meet some of your strategic goals, then better. And honestly, they feel better because they feel like their contributions aren't just making teachers happy that day, but they're building to something that's bigger and better.
Yeah, we need Oracle Ford buying the teachers' cars.
That would be nice. Can I get one too? I have a kid that's almost driving age, so I'm gonna have to start thinking about that. Okay, so I took my notes there. We are at 446, so I'm going to move to the next slide. And again, it's I will visit the chat to see if anybody added any last minute kind of things that we didn't capture. So this is a review for SMART goals. If you've not already gone through any kind of SMART goal training, I just think it's really important because this all on the same page. Too often, I mean, we've played the game telephone, words can be subjective. People are going to think that the same goal means different things if we're not more clear around what we mean by that. So we have to be specific and we have to be measurable. Being specific about what we're trying to achieve and adding that measure only goes to clarify even more what we mean by success. So specific, measurable, achievable. We want to make sure that these are things that we can accomplish in the next year, we can make progress on in the next year and accomplish in the next couple of years. We don't want to say that we're going to have, looking at your reading scores, it would not be achievable to say in 2 years, all of our schools are going to be above 80% proficiency on the AZ merit. Like, it's not that it's impossible, but we want to make these goals achievable and time bound. This is something that we want to be able to achieve in the next couple of years. And then relevant, making sure that the goals, and this is going to go for your objectives too. We're talking about the strategic goals. So I guess I'm talking a little bit more to Crystal here when we start working with the directors and then on down the chain, down to the campus level plans, down to the teacher, things. It has to be relevant. And so while we're checking this, and when you're coming up with this plan to bring before the board, it will be really helpful for them. And it helps reduce, I feel, micromanagement and some of those kind of like questioning along the way. If you can show up front, here's the strategic plan, here's what the board said, and here's how it's relevant. And we've created relevant goals related to that strategic plan on down the line. Because if goals are all getting done in a silo, which happens sometimes, transportation is going to make their own department goals, and this department is going to make their own department goals. You might find yourself, best case scenario, just going in different directions, and worst case scenario, counteracting each other. So that's just really important. And that time-bound piece is also important because that tells your community when to expect that's going to happen. It's not like, we'll get there when we get there. It's, here's something to hold us accountable. Let's see, next slide. So again, just remembering what your goal areas are. I've included for you, and I think was shared, a drafting document. I like this document because creating SMART goals is tough. Especially if you're not making widgets. It's not like we want to produce 500, toy trucks by the end of, the fiscal year, and we can count whether or not we have 100 trucks or not. These type of goals that we're doing are a little bit harder to create SMART goals around. So this document that I've shared with you allows you to first just kind of stream of consciousness, put it out there. So put what you already have out as objectives on this document. Put there and then start clarifying your turns, discussing the success factors, talking about what kind of progress steps need to be, or benchmarks need to be met, to be able to articulate how it correlates to your mission and value, and how long you think it's going to take. Then with all of that information, you can start to frame a more specific, measurable, attainable, time-bound goal. Because some people just try to right off the bat start writing it as a SMART goal, and it's harder to do it that way. So this document I'm providing you, and we can certainly go through it a little bit today and practice a couple of these goals once we have some consensus around what changes we might want to make to your existing document. But this will be the tool that you'll use going forward, specifically Crystal, but this is also the tool we'll use to make sure that our strategic goals are a little bit more smart. Couple things I want to review. When we're talking about goal setting, the board's role in this process. So in a little bit, we're going to go through all the notes that I took for all 4 of the goal areas from our conversation so far. And we're going to go back to the document and we're going to start doing a little bit of that wordsmithing and making sure that we have, pretty much what we want underneath those goals and objectives. But for the board, this is to remember that this is a time for providing feedback and offering suggestions, and that the direction can be given through the whole board, not individuals. So what we're not going to do is have 5 people tell Crystal the 5 things they want to see as objectives under this goal. What we are going to do is say, this is things that I think are important, and she's going to take that information in, and then she's going to come back with this is the plan that I have, hearing your feedback. This board's process is ensuring that we're gathering the information and that everybody had an equitable opportunity to provide input. That's the board's role when we're forming these strategic goals. The administration then is going to take that information. They're going to identify the actions that need to happen, who's going to be responsible, so what departments will own various actions, and where are they going to get input, and when are they going to communicate throughout the process. So she should be able to come back to you with a plan and say, and here's my plan, and here's the points in which I'm going to get input from you all or from other stakeholders, and here's the points where you can expect updates on the plan. So that's a lot of work on her behalf, and that's why I said we're not walking away today with a strategic plan. This is going to take her, until the spring to do this legwork with, everybody down the line. This is just a reminder of why we invited all these other guests today. So thank you for coming. Even you not saying anything, just being here and hearing the conversation, I think helps you be better advocates about what this board is doing in terms of the process of developing these, so that you can go out and talk about what's happening. And hopefully throughout the process, Crystal will be able to engage you ongoing. But the stakeholder before the full implementation is key. I mean, we could have just taken the document that you sent out, Crystal, that had the goals and said, these are our goals, like this is what it is. But we brought it back not only for the board to revisit it, because it's been a little while and things have happened, but also for us to get some other outside eyes on it ahead of time to make sure we didn't miss anything. And hopefully that'll get us some buy-in so that if we continue to engage in the process, they understood the thinking, the rationale, and they can help advocate this to other people. And it creates a sense of ownership, because the board can't accomplish these goals, and Crystal, you can't accomplish this on your own. And so if everybody, and that's the beauty of tying them and aligning them all the way down the line, because everybody should be able to look at their own personal goals and see how those align to the campus's goals, and see how those campus goals align all the way on up the chain. And when you do that, people feel that sense of ownership, and you create that environment you're talking about, which is, hey, this is a great place and this is what we believe in, and we're all working towards the same thing. And then lastly, I wanted to show you this action planning timeline. You'll see here the goal area. You would put in the goal area. It's very small, I realize for you. I have it blown up on a big screen, but I realize for you it's small, so I want to walk you through it. You would put on there community outreach. That's the goal area. And then strategy would be your objective. So one of the bullets that you had underneath that is where you would put strategy. And then you would go through the action steps of what needs to be done by who, by when, in order to meet that objective. And then in those boxes underneath there, it talks about capacity considerations. So are there anything that you need to think about in terms of money, material, people ahead of time to get them ready to do their action step? Is there monitoring of the process? When are you going to check in as superintendent? Of course, you're going to be giving these action, working with teams and having them create these action plans. But as superintendent or whoever's the next supervisor up, what's their monitoring process going to look like? There's a spot to put that. And then the evaluation criteria. How will we know when these things are done? So it's a really cool document. It's a lot of information on a little page. I think I sent it to you in the Word format, Crystal, so you can, it expands. You can make it a lot longer than what's shown here. So going forward, just identifying a timeline, that's kind of the next steps. So maybe I'll skip that and come back to that in a little bit. So let's go back to, I'm going to stop sharing this screen, pause for any comments while I'm switching screens, and pull up the Google document so you can see the notes that we made, and then I'll try to retype the goals that we're talking about. Okay. I wish I was watching this because I apparently somebody really liked that and somebody else had a great idea. I don't know if it was mine or somebody else's, but we are liking what we're hearing is what I see in the chat. All right. So do you all see the notes that I have here?
Yeah, I can see them.
Great. I can't share two screens at once, so I'm going to ask you if you have it available, that document that your current, the 20 goals, the way that you had them written there. I'm going to start with basically just saying with the first goal, the district will, and I think we said the district will align their standards and curriculum pacing guidelines to ensure adherence with Arizona College Career and Readiness Standards.
It actually said the district will know, understand, and implement, and I think you wanted to change the word to align to Arizona's. District will know, understand, and align.
I think we're only going with align. Is that
You're going
correct?
to take out know and understand? The words know and understand? I'm looking at.
Yeah, I believe the discussion was that in order to align the pacing guidelines and curriculum with the standards, you have to know and understand them.
And I just am not comfortable with saying know and understand when this is a public document. I mean, we're supposed to know and understand these.
And I would like, if I could say something about that as well. I agree. I think the know and the understand, that's an expectation that should already be there. But like Crystal was talking about, evaluating the effectiveness of your teaching of a standard is different than knowing and understanding it. So the homework that we had, Ms. Mackey and I had to go through the standards and highlight them. We really found that valuable because it wasn't, and we didn't have any standards that were like, what? We have to teach that? No, we know we have to teach those. But there were some standards that were like, we teach this really well, and this is how we can tell from the students, the products, the understanding that the student shows. But there were some standards that were like, we need to hit this a little harder. So I think it's more of like not knowing and understanding, but aligning and evaluating the effectiveness of teaching of the standards.
I really like the evaluating, Amy, because that's often the part that's missed, is the follow-up to make sure that we're actually doing it.
Yeah, there really needs to be a time where you take a step back and think about, well, what did I do? What was effective? What wasn't effective? What can I do in the future? You know, do I need to go back and reteach? So, yeah.
So under, okay, align. And that might be a task. So I don't want to get into the task, but evaluation is definitely a component of doing any kind of goal. Is eventually you will have to evaluate whether or not that was completed. And I'm sure one of the tasks would be some professional development and benchmarking where you're at currently and all of that great stuff. So how do people feel about the district will align its curriculum and pacing guide with Arizona College and Career Readiness standards?
Clarify pacing.
I believe that's just what they call them, like the pacing standards. So maybe I'm using wrong terminology, but I know that's what
you're Nikki, you're right. A pacing guide, Jerry, it's kind of like a calendar, and it says, okay, at this point I need to have taught this, and at this point I need to have taught that.
Nikki, the other piece I think that Amy talked about, I don't know if it's going here, but was to follow up and make sure that we're succeeding. You know, we're going to align, but what about follow up to make sure we're doing it? Does that just happen as a matter of following up on the objective and goal?
Yeah, so when you go to assess whether or not you've met this goal, you're going to have to evaluate whether or not those things have been updated to align.
So by evaluate, are you referring to taking a test? Are you talking about talking between teachers? Do you define evaluate or just leave it open-ended?
We're not going to say evaluate here. I think Nikki's talking about evaluating whether or not we did in fact align our curriculum and pacing guidelines.
Okay.
Goal is for the district is that this needs to be done. We need to align it. There's going to be several tasks underneath this objective that Crystal has to come up with, and that's part of what this is once we have these goals and broad objectives, she then has to spend the next several months creating action plans and department level goals on the way down and making sure that people down are all making goals. And in those goals, I'm sure somewhere along the line, somebody's going to have the goal of assessing and evaluating all of those things. And so we're not going to put that here, but that's probably going to show up somewhere down the line.
Fair enough.
The second one that I see here is the district will recruit and retain highly effective certified and classified staff. What I would ask is, how do you make that measurable? How would you know that you were doing that? You have a turnover rate currently that you want to reduce. Is there some kind of metric that we can use? Do you want to have at least certain percentage certified teachers? I would put some kind of metric around that, because how will you know that your efforts are resulting in retaining and retaining highly effective certified teachers?
My thought isn't so much with like, I'm going to throw this out here okay, so our problem is we hire people and then they leave like right away. And so could we put something in like to measure it that when hired people stay at least 3 years or something of that? Because that's been our problem, is people have been leaving.
But long term, Crystal, long term, I don't think that's been our problem as much as
recently.
Because we over the past 8 years, I think, I patted myself, not myself, but I patted us on the back about, we've got our retention, teacher retention is good. We're high on teacher retention. But really, if the teachers being retained aren't
great,
the ideal, then maybe that's not a good thing. You want, so it's the quality that I think we're also after.
I agree.
I would like to add, this is Allie, recruitment has been really difficult. We've noticed in the last 2 years, recruitment has been very difficult. So more so than retention, I think.
The one thing here, the district will recruit and retain highly effective certified. It's difficult for us to know if teachers are going to be highly effective when we recruit them. I'll just say that. So, I mean, that is the goal, but it might be tough.
Well, actually, the goal is that the district will narrow the achievement gap between the state standards. And these are sub-goals to that particular goal. So we got to look at each of these as how does it affect that initial strategic goal?
You're right. I used the wrong term. I meant objective.
Yeah. So to Jerry's point, if the idea is that if you retain good teachers, it'll better or it'll reduce the gap, then the draft language that I have here that I feel is a little bit more measurable, and it will require Crystal to go back and kind of look at what your current numbers are, but the district will retain a minimum of blank % of teachers, and you could, or staff, however you want to put that, who scored blank. I don't know what your evaluations are for teachers or staff, if it's a 1 through 5, or if it's a highly proficient or whatever that is, but that scored at least whatever you think the minimum of a good teacher is. So if you're on a 1 through 5 scale and you want 4s and 5s, you want all your teachers to be in the 4s and 5s, then what I would do is I would say, okay, what % of our teachers that are scoring 4s or 5s are staying? So I would say if you had 100 teachers and 80 of them are scoring 4s and 5s, and you keep 40 of them, you really only have a 50% retention rate of highly qualified, what you would identify as highly qualified teachers. Is that, I don't know if 50% is good, because maybe right now you're keeping 80% and that would be bad, but you'd have to fill in the math there, but in terms of the goal, the district will retain a minimum % of teachers who scored whatever your goal is on their annual evaluation.
Are we not going to consider the classified staff, because the original one included classified staff? Your second one is only teachers. So are we going to do 2 different?
It could be teachers / staff. And it would just mean that whatever you might have to, on that score, if you score teachers on a different scale or use different terms than you do for your classified staff. So say you score your teachers on a 1 through 5, but you score your classified staff on a 1 through 10 scale, you would need 2 different metrics there, but you can do a / like I did right here. We will retain a certain percentage of our teachers and staff who score this / this on their annual assessment.
I think that's a good point, Jerry, because we have noted that we haven't focused on our classified staff in the past, and they certainly are critical. And I like, Nikki, what you did there with actually putting some numbers to this, or a place to put numbers.
And so while this is the goal, the action then, what I'm starting to think about is, okay, we want our teachers to score a certain level, in order to meet this goal, we're going to need as many people as possible scoring well on their annual evaluation. So we better be doing everything that we can to support our teachers in order to do well on their evaluations. And if that means, and that might mean doing some conversations with your teachers about what they need. Do they need PD? Do they need support? Do they need whatever it is that they, you'll have to probably do some kind of survey to see what is it that is keeping them from doing that, and what kind of performance plan would help mid-year, so they're not waiting till the end of the year to find out that they're not meeting, performance stuff. And again, that's just my 2 cents. That's with my HR hat on, because that's a life I used to live before. So I'm just providing that insight to you, but that would be my recommendation as an administrator that's trying to meet that goal. The district will work to reduce inequities linked to poverty in our rural locations. What inequities specifically?
Like internet connectivity, food, issues.
Transportation issues.
Transportation issues, parental support issues.
I wrote down, Nikki, what you had mentioned earlier about how we assess readiness to engage in academic learning. And I hate to say all of it, but we had been thinking about poverty in our rural location, and you kind of narrowed it down to some more specific things that is part of poverty in rural location. But are you fed? Do you have the sleep you need? Do you have the technology that you need? So I know this isn't making it more specific. You also use the phrase overcome barriers. So I'm trying to find the words to put it all in there, but I really like, just readiness to engage in academic learning. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, throwing it all out there.
Okay. So I'm kind of drafting it as we're going. The district will work to ensure that our students have what they need to effectively to effectively access, engage, and feel successful in school. That would require, I would say, some kind of a survey. If you're going to be doing that, it would be some type of a survey to ask your family that. And I would say that would probably a pre and post would be your best bet. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're looking at develop a survey of what are some of the barriers that we're going to ask our families about, what do they come back and say that they need? And then as we move through the year, we reassess them and say, how well do they feel like those needs have been met? And then you create a different survey to ask, you ask the same questions, but then you also ask at the end of it, how prepared do you feel, or does your child feel to be successful and engaged in class? So I'm going to put in here student family survey results. And again, we cannot do this is a training session. This is a strategic planning session. There is no action that's going to be taken in this meeting. So this is all just conversation, wordsmithing, and consensus building that you will still have to go back, form the document, and then bring that before the board to open that up to community comment and ratify. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not action being taken place, and that the community that might be watching understands that there's still opportunity to provide feedback on this.
Thank you, Nikki.
Okay, and so then the fourth one is the district will encourage certified teachers to earn national board certification. Do we want to say the district will encourage certifieds to earn it, or do we want to say that the district will enroll at least 3 of its educators in the, system? I don't know.
That's what I wanted. I say, let's say 1. We'll get 1.
Oh, they need help. I think 1 is scary. 1 will never do it, but 2 or 3 will do it.
Okay.
Yeah, they need buddies for sure.
But then we need to look at finances. And
you guys, finances is not going to be an issue. I'm telling you, just trust me. I'll pay for 1 myself if I have to.
Then that should be in the goal that, like, we will enroll through a grant program X number.
Well, okay, then we should discuss it more, because I feel this is important enough that whether or not, and I think it is going to be grant funded, but whether or not it is grant funded, it is important enough for the district to pay for it. It's way more important than board members going to training. Sorry, Nikki, but I think this is really important to our district.
And that's what I was going to say. If you have it on as an objective and it's on your goal, these are your priorities. So you should be then looking at your budget to say, what is important, but not on these priorities that we're prioritizing right now that we might have to take that from. Hopefully you won't, like Linda said, but if push comes to shove, if this is truly something that you want to keep as one of your objectives to meeting the student achievement goal, then you find the money. Then you make those hard choices and make that happen, or you go after the grants, or you just kind of you make that happen. And if you don't, then you don't meet the goal, and you discuss why you weren't successful, and you reevaluate your approach for the next time.
I agree. And with what Linda said, I think this directly connects to, does spending reflect alignment with our strategic goals? Because there's spending that happens that we don't really bat an eye about. And we love our ASBA conferences, but it's one of them. We don't bat an eye, we just do it. But there's other things, like teacher PD and, that we look at a little bit closer. For example, I just joined the cohort of Arizona superintendents for the national board certification. And I worked with Allie, and we discovered that, you can spend Title II professional development funds on that. And so we wrote it into the grant, and, I applied, and it's very exciting. But it's true. Like, if it's one of your goals, you're going to find the money. And so I'm glad that we're making it one of our goals here.
So I formatted it to say the district will identify and facilitate the enrollment of 2 to 3 certified teachers in the NBST training program.
Excellent.
If more teachers want to participate, can they, or are we just focusing on the 2 to 3 to pay for it?
I can add minimum of.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it's MBCT.
Thank you. It is.
Good point, Shannon. Thank you.
Okay, so it's 5:17, y'all, and that took a little bit of time. I want to do a check-in and just make sure that, I want to do this process for all of these, but we're going to be cutting it a little close. So do you just want to keep going at this pace and see how far we get, or do you want to hopscotch over one of these to one that you think is a little bit going to take a little bit more finagling? So what I mean by that is, I think we were on school safety thinking about adding a couple different ones that are completely brand new. So that might take us some time, or we can just keep going in order. What do y'all want to do?
I'm open either way.
The campus safety and community outreach seemed a little bit more muddy to me than the finance administration did.
All right.
Okay. So let us skip to safe campuses. The district will continue to pursue eligible projects through the Arizona School State Facilities Board. I think we had talked about, is that fine? Just leaving that how it is?
It's an ongoing goal on a regular basis. We never know what else is going to need to be done.
Okay, so let me put that on here. The district will so when you say continually pursue, can we just say that the district will submit projects to the Arizona State Facilities Board?
We'll continue to submit because, again, we don't know next year how many there will be. So as we see a need, we want to be able to continue it.
How about we'll make maximum use of State Facilities Board grants or something like that?
Yeah, that's good.
The district will maximize.
By the way, Nikki, when Jerry and I agree at any board meeting, everybody goes and buys lottery tickets.
I'm ordering mine online right now.
A lot of your school facilities board requests were outlined in the assessment that was done by, I forget the architectural firm that helped us set up. Orcutt Winslow, thank you, that helped us set up for the number of dollars we needed for a bond. We had quite a long string of them. And we said, this is what the school facilities board will do for us to fix these problems. Here's what we will do. Here's what we'll bond for. So you might want to go back and look at that original list, to keep track of a lot of the things that the SFB will do for the school district, plus the other things that Craig will find. So just a thought.
How about the district will review and prioritize facility needs in order to maximize state facility board funding?
I like that. I like that a lot.
Prioritize.
We could always say something like, we'll make sure we get enough school facilities board money to pay for Allie's salary.
Check.
Allie likes that.
I think we already have.
Several times over.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay, the district will review and prioritize facilities needs. Apparently that's not grammatically correct or something's
We'll
happening.
fix it. Don't worry about that.
Facility board funds. The district will prioritize the health and safety. Let me skip to this other one. The district will, because I think we had safe campuses. The district will review and update the emergency response plan. Will review, update, and communicate out the emergency response plan. Okay, I skipped to that one because I thought that one was relatively easy. Okay, so now we get into that whole social emotional, like what is safety, the health and safety of our students. We have the district will prioritize the health and safety of students and staff through the delivery of capital bond projects. I think we talked about the district will communicate the connection between capital projects and the health and safety needs of students.
Yes.
A year ago, the safety of our students was about vaping.
Mm-hmm.
How the world has changed.
That's what kind of pulled me from our goal planning session in February.
Yep, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
See, Nikki, one of our projects is to revamp even the parking lot so the kids are safe getting from the buses, from the cars into the campus.
The district will communicate with all stakeholders how capital bond projects are meeting the health and safety needs of students. Okay, so now let's tackle social emotional.
PBIS.
PBIS.
So let's something about like maintain. You had mentioned continue to certify Mountain Vista K-8 school as a PBIS school.
This feels I mean, PBIS is something that's been going on a while, and the world really has changed. I think if we just focus on PBIS, I think it feels to me like we're thinking a little too small.
Okay.
To me, it feels more like whole child ought to be the focus.
I'm still
What's
listening.
Nikki thinking? Well, what are you thinking, Nikki?
If you've decided that PBIS is the way that you're going to go and want to implement district-wide, because if you only have one school right now, that means other schools are either not doing it or they're not certified in it.
We
So
are,
if
yeah. I guess that would be a slam dunk goal because we're already there.
Our other campuses aren't doing it, so we've decided to let them just go away.
So, I mean, if you want to put your eggs in the PBIS basket and say, we love PBIS and this is where we're going to go, then I would write a goal about ensuring that they are all certified. Or if you have a couple schools, because you know how they go through like the bronze, silver, gold, like if you want to set a goal of continuing the PBIS system at districts so that they everybody achieves the minimum, which I think is bronze or something like that. You could say that that was your goal, or PBIS way, because Linda is correct. I mean, PBIS is a very good program, but there's other programs that are out there that are kind of like the next step in terms of equity and restorative practices and all of that. You could create a goal of reevaluating your school discipline programs and deciding if that's the system that you want to use.
Could we make a goal of creating a committee to fit the whole child that would include some of the PBIS team as well as the counselor, and because we're getting a counselor, and so our goal would be to create a committee to focus on the whole child?
Ooh, that sounds good, Shannon.
You could do both. I actually like that. I like the idea of establishing and then one of their goals could be looking at your discipline policy or looking at other, looking at your title, way that you're spending your title dollars. And if that's really what they think that, you could use that committee in a lot of different ways.
I want to say, Shannon, that was an awesome idea. And from the chat bar, Amy McDonald says that she would like to see a more whole child focus and a movement to restorative practices.
Can you explain restorative practices, please?
Sure, restorative practices 101. No, I think PBIS was wonderful for establishing like a school-wide common language, common expectations across the board, but restorative practices is where you are coming in with a different kind of approach with discipline, and it allows you to restore everyone involved, and it respects the relationships between all the people involved. So it's not just that someone has a consequence or there's discipline that is across the board. It's more, let's talk about this. What do you need as someone who was affected by whatever was done? How can you restore the relationship between the people? So it's really wonderful. It's kind of like a next step.
Isn't it also, I mean, I guess I would have understood that it was like, we're not just disciplining kids. We're not just sending them to detention. We're not just suspending them. We're actually getting them back in the mainstream and back into learning.
Yes, exactly. And it's not just taking the one child who did something wrong and disciplining them. You're bringing in everybody who was involved, the person who was, I don't want to say the victim, but the person who was affected by whatever the action was, and they're all involved in bringing back the person who did something wrong and the person who was affected by it so that it's restored. So it's really relational. And I think it would be a wonderful direction to go through.
If you did not attend the annual conference, it was a really great presentation, and I want to say it was on conscious discipline, and I think it was from oh, I don't know if it was from Cartwright, but it was a whole, or Litchfield. It might have been Litchfield. But a main philosophy of just about how conscious discipline and how that, you know, assessing your own like triggers and how that impacts how you respond to your kids that are triggered. And so, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff out there. So, but what I put, and then I'm going to go back to Crystal to speak on this, but I just want to make sure that I'm kind of getting to a goal here. Establish a committee to review how to establish a committee to establish a whole child focused wide that will improve the social emotional well-being of students. And that's a little wordy, but
I think it's great, Nikki. We get it. And I can like later, you know, omit a couple words here and there, but I think that it's the next step.
And don't you think that'll help with our bullying issues? Hopefully.
It
Crystal?
could, yeah.
Yeah. I think Crystal froze up. Or she thinks what I said was stupid. I'm not sure.
I would even say that the board may consider making this a public committee, because the superintendent can always create a task force or create a committee. And those people meet whenever board committee. That it is a pain in the upfront. It's a pain because they have to be they have to follow the same rules as board, meaning that you have to publicize when your meetings are happening. You have to make them accessible to the public. You have to keep minutes. But it's a great way to demonstrate transparency and build engagement with your community, that they know that this is something that's not in the back room happening somewhere, but this is something that everybody can see. I see some chat box going on. Was there comments to that or?
No, I think that where we are is good.
Okay. Fourth objective to save campuses, and I'm gonna, oh, we did have one on goal around teacher climate and culture committee. You maybe just want to call this whole thing climate and culture committee for students and staff. That's what we call it in our district. We have a cultural and climate department, and it's both. It's for staff, but it's also for students. So I'm going to leave as like a sub bullet, and you can maybe wordsmith it in if you like that verbiage. If not, that's fine too. Just so that we know we want to be an environment we want to create an environment that takes into the account the well-being of both our students and our staff.
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we got through that section. Community, let me check the time real quick. 5:33. All right, let's do this. We're gonna get through here. The district will continue to partner with Oracle School Foundation to enrich educational experiences of all students. I think the question there was
we had
how.
said and others, not to you know, just focus exclusively on the foundation.
And I think we talked about, you need to put some, the district will work with the foundation and other partners to establish ways in which they will enrich. I don't know, I'm getting wordy here, but you just need to enrich how, what's the priority? Because as we were talking about before, we don't want them, you know, throwing it at everything. And we don't want them spending their money on things that could be spent on by other funding sources. So how do we, the district will develop a plan?
We're already doing, which is the preschool scholarships, the hotspots, the specifics like that.
Well, I think, yeah, and I think this, the capital improvements plan that we talked about, the 5-year plan, we should include stuff that we could get partners to pay for, maybe not just capital stuff, but maybe we have another plan that over the next 5 years, what are we going to need to improve our education delivery, and where can our partners help us with that? Because if they came to us and said, we have $100,000 to give you, yeah, we could tell them, but would it really be strategically thought out, necessarily?
Okay, so this is the draft language I came up with. The district will develop a plan for maximizing the contributions of the Oracle School Foundation and other partners to enrich the experience of students.
Yeah.
Okay, then you had the district will recruit governing board members that represent Oracle's diverse community. That one sounds good in and of itself. Are you looking for that still? Or was that last year's goal, or what's happening?
It was something that came up in 2020.
I think at that point, that's ongoing, because if you only focus on it on a year when someone's going to leave, you miss out. You rush to judgment. You need to be out there looking for people that will come in to do the job, that want to see what you're doing now and maybe for the next year or so, maybe 2 years, and then say, hey, that's really cool. I want to get involved with that. I'll run for the board. That way you're engaged with those people. Just to go out and say, tag you on the shoulder, you're it. That doesn't get you where you want. I don't think that gets you where you want to be. It's like working our bond. It's the same thing. You had to work on it for years to make it work, not just go out and say, hey, give us money. It doesn't work. Find people out there in the community that would like to be on the board or would like to be involved maybe in another way, and then pull them in to want to be more involved and be on the board.
Well said, Jeff. It's almost like we want to build a bench.
Yes. Yes.
That we can pull people from to do various things. And an awareness that if we have someone who's on the PTO, maybe they would be willing to serve on a committee or eventually serve on the board. Or if we have a coach who's really stellar, we just identify people along the way to encourage them to do more.
Even your community partners that you're going out to recruit that are going to come and help the school financially, maybe some of those people, the directors in those businesses or, the head of some business would like to become involved more than just financially, but maybe even to see how that money's directed.
Nikki,
get bigger than just say, oh, that PT. I mean, nothing is PTO or coaches, but get bigger, broader. Don't stay so myopic. Open up.
And to his point, Nikki, we have had some success at this because, for example, we built a bench with Jeff on the school board, and now we've gotten him elected to the Pinal County Supervisors, Board of Supervisors. And so we're going to have help from that area. And that was kind of a joke, but.
Yeah, I know you're.
Well, I also think that it's important because this goes into that equity piece of how are you engaging people that are not maybe able or not currently feeling there's a space for them to participate, or maybe the opportunities to participate are always during times where they can't participate or don't have transportation. Now that we have virtual, maybe there is a way to maximize that to engage folks. So what I wrote here is the district will identify and engage diverse leaders to serve on campus committees and or Oracle School Board. My recommendation, though, would be to come up with a metric there, Crystal, in terms of what that looks like. So is that metric that 50% or 20% of all committees or 20% of these certain committees will have parent engagement? I mean, I don't want to, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I don't want to pigeonhole you or say anything specific, but I would encourage you to put some kind of metric behind that, because you can identify and engage people, but then they don't participate. So maybe it's, we will include, we will identify and engage at least 2 new community members who weren't previously engaged to participate on a committee, and something like that. You have the district will engage familiar environment in our involvement in our parent teacher organization. In the conversation, we talked about the difference between involvement and engagement. So at this point, are you and it's a continuum, because there's the continuum of just getting people to show up to spaghetti dinners to feeling like parents are empowered partners in decision making. So where are you on the continuum? Are you striving for involvement at this point? Are you trying to create a plan? I mean, what is it that we're doing, what we're trying to do? I have on here the ideas that you had previously come up with was, one, review the Title I parent engagement piece and develop a plan that outlines, let me skip that. Develop a plan that outlines all the involvement initiatives that exist within the district, meaning like basically asset map what you currently are doing to engage people, assess it, and then just what are the strategies that you want to put your efforts behind. So that's one type of goal, and it feeds into the, which was develop and implement at least 2 meaningful ways to elicit engagement and or feedback. What do people think?
I'm really interested in what Tiffany thinks on this one, about where the PTO is and what the school board and district can do to help. We're talking, Tiffany, about the district will encourage familial involvement in our PTO. I mean,
yeah.
Is that what we need to be doing with regard to PTO?
I mean, I know talking with PTO, and this year it's been mostly the officers. So there's 4 of us. And that has been a big topic of how we can be more involved currently with the school, especially this school year with everything going on. I mean, and I know what we've heard, at least for parents, just engaging more, I think, with the teachers, or how they can help with the teachers, and thus in return, kind of lifting spirits within the community, especially amongst the children. And I know part of that, since we are doing the Parent Academy, that is helping as far as with the children, or attitudes, or things like that. And I certainly have already watched the first video that's been out, thanks to Crystal and Anne. But I would say, and I mean, I agree that the PTO, or there could be more involvement, or see some change, or some of the committees that you're talking about, whether it be if there's more involvement that the PTO could help with, or parents in general with like the Title I, or kind of that academic family involvement, that would support the teachers more, and in return support their kids more as well.
So it sounds like, I mean, to me, what comes to mind, Crystal, is there any way to get the PTO helping us somehow as a bridge with parents, and between parents and, I don't mean between parents and teachers. We want parents and teachers communicating directly, but just in support of academic achievement. Is there anything to be done there?
There's definitely stuff that can be done. I am not coming up with any ideas right now, but I know working with our grade level chairs, we could come up with some things that are actionable.
Okay, so this is what I have for that one real quick. Assess current parent engagement strategies and develop a plan to increase/improve involvement initiatives or engagement initiatives.
I think that's really good.
I think that's good. I think that's good too, because at the last couple PTO meetings that I did, I thought there would be more involvement, being that we were on Zoom calls, and it's not like, since now we have a lot of families in Eagle Crest, Catalina, and now Salmonwell Mammoth. So I thought maybe it's just an inconvenience to go to meetings, to have to drive up to Oracle. So I was hoping to see more parents in on those meetings, but Tiffany's right. It's just the officers and teachers who are showing up. So we really do need to get parent engagement and involvement.
And probably bring a little more awareness to it, you know, because yeah, you have parents, you know, or grandparents too, for that matter, struggling online or with Zoom calls or kind of that technology aspect of it. But yeah, just like Shannon said, you know, you would think with Zoom, because we're all remote, that maybe you could have more parents chime in a little bit more instead of being in person. But I also think maybe they're not as aware or perhaps not aware of like what we currently could be doing or how parents could be helping. It's maybe a little bit the struggle there.
So the other thing that I have that's separate. So if we keep, because I kind of wanted to do two different ways. One is engagement of like, let's start the work of talking about how parents want to be engaged. But then we also just want a way to start getting that involvement with them, at least like, how do we get information to and from? How do we get feedback? And so I kind of separated these into two different objectives. One is to assess the current parent engagement strategies and develop a plan to increase or improve the engagement initiatives. And then another one is to survey, develop, and implement at least 2 meaningful ways to collect feedback. I don't know what you think about that, but that was something that was talked about before, or if you feel like that falls underneath, that might be something that comes out of the other group. They might decide survey is not the best way.
Nikki, I'm looking here at my notes and I don't see it. When we had mentioned at least 2 meaningful ways of feedback, what were some examples of that feedback? Just so when I come back to it later, my mind I'll be able to jump back into it.
So one of them was, and we're already doing that. We're kind of already doing that by establishing like the safety committee, the wellness committee, and then if we're creating a parent engagement, you know, if we're going to assess the current parent engagement strategies, my assumption is one of your action steps would be to involve, you know, create committees and involve parents in some kind of way. So I think we're already kind of doing some of that. But another way to do that would be the fact that when we were talking about communication protocols, really. I mean, currently, how does the board get information from their community? There's a handful of people that are vocal and they email and they come to the board, or, I mean, and I'm speaking from my experience, or, you know, as a parent and a community member, there's a handful of people that just have access to me. They happen to have my ear, and those are the people I hear from. And that's not really an equitable way about representing a community. But in lieu of having a clear communication protocol or chain or, you know, avenue to collect in a more equitable way feedback, that's what we're left with. And so I think this one was really about establishing some protocols or some ways in which parents could give feedback or express concerns in a different kind of way.
Thank you, Nikki. I took note of that and I'm going to remember. And Edie, this is kind of like what we were talking about the other day. We were talking about like Congress on your corner. And of course, we wouldn't call it that because we're not Congress, but, you know, just kind of that idea of congressmen, you know, coming out into the community and, you know, just being available at this place at this time. And you could just, you know that they're there and go communicate and share, you know, your thoughts. So got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so looking at the time, it's 10 minutes before your board meeting. It doesn't look like I was going to be able to give you as much time, but I think that I saved you some time in the long run by walking these through for you instead of leaving you to have to write them yourselves. So you'll have to go back and kind of fidget with the finance ones, but I do think that we already kind of fixed those. There weren't too many tweaks there. I will send you, so at the end of this training, just like I did last time, I will send you the notes of what we came up with. The last thing that we were going to talk about, but we already kind of mentioned, was that, you know, Crystal is going to provide to you, you know, sometime after the new year, relatively soon after the new year, a timeline. So she's going to kind of noodle on what all the stuff that's happening and what she thinks she's going to need to do in order to give you a meaningful plan. And so then she's going to come to you kind of relatively early in the new year and say, okay, by spring or by the summer, or I would say by the spring, have a draft, you know, plan, get feedback. By the summer, establish what those action plans are going to be so that you can hit the new school year running with, and the new fiscal year with those approved plans.
Nikki, I think this is awesome. I think we made a lot of progress tonight, and we appreciate your insight and helping us get through it.
It was my pleasure. I'm a nerd for this stuff. I love this stuff. So, so with that, I'm done. I don't have anything else. I'll also send my, in my notes, I'll also send the slides that we went through today. And, oh, I know what I was going to do. I have an evaluation. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now, so that you can tell me how I did. And then you can call this session. Ooh, what's that? That's a fun
dog.
noise.
Jeff's dog, right?
You can resolve this meeting or conclude this meeting, and then and move on. I'll stay on here until 6 because I think I have to cancel the meeting because I'm running it, and I have to stop. We're still streaming to Facebook, so I'll let you call your meeting to adjournment, and then I'll stop the recording and everything.
Did anyone else have something to say, or Crystal, do you want to close anything?
Nikki, thank you so much. And to our grade level chairs and PTO, thank you for being part of this process. I agree, even at moments when we were all verbalizing our thoughts, just hearing the conversation and being part of the conversation is really important. And I am going to run because I want to be able to let my dog out before our board meeting. And I'm going to get that other Zoom set up. But Nikki, I really appreciate your time and just your guidance as we create this roadmap.
Thank you so much to everyone Jeff, did you have something?
No, I say thanks, Nikki, for your time. That was great.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you to the staff and to Tiffany for participating. And can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Okay, Mr. McClure moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Taylor seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you. We'll see you in a bit.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.